Hello, guys. It's Marc, Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi. We're just getting the tables simulcast going here, and it's a wonderful day. And I'm wearing my Terminator 2 shirt, which is very cool. And I will be joining with computer audio. There we go, and there we are, and here we all are. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, guys. Hello, everyone. Hello, Adam.
Hello.
Wow.
Hello.
There we go, and there's
Hi.
Elaine, and here we go.
Hello.
There she is, in all of her splendiferousness.
Oh yeah.
Hi, guys. Hi. So Adam, should we start with you because you're
Skip me for now. I've got
we'll
things I got to take
skip
care
you
of.
for now.
Okay.
Well, we never. Susan, how about we start with you? We rarely start with you. Why don't we do that tonight?
Okay, because I might have to leave early. So
Good.
It's good to. I mentioned last time that we're going to film in Syracuse, and that's going to be 2021. I also wanted to tell you that I have a good experience. I've been looking for an African-American female director,
Yeah.
Great.
Uh-huh.
and I finally put it all out to everybody, on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard from somebody, she's not a table member, but a table member said, hey, you should talk to her.
Wow.
Anyway, she's great. She's got great credits. I think she's going to be really, really good.
Great.
Great. Oh,
She's
and
in Louisiana, though, and she's in the middle of a hurricane, so we can't talk quite yet.
wow.
Okay.
Oh, that's yes.
So we've
And
emailed back and forth, but
and-
then we're going to talk when she gets out of the hurricane.
okay. And one thing I should mention to everyone is if you haven't muted your microphone, please do, because the rule is that the person who's speaking is unmuted except for me because of my megalomaniacal tendencies.
Or
So,
if you want to put in a specific comment, unmute just for
well,
that.
yeah, obviously, yes, and like nuh-uh, something
Yeah.
like that. But
So,
okay, so
no,
Susan,
that's
please
great.
go
I mean,
ahead.
Because then you can really think up before you talk to her. When you say, without giving away anything, how do you see this movie? So just to make sure that you guys are on the same beam. We ended up getting a much. Mark and I were choosing a Fontana project where we had a choice of either a very, very experienced director
Tom Fontana, yeah,
or a relatively
a newbie.
a newbie. And when the newbie said what he saw in this movie compared to what the other fellow said, the whole team
It was
said,
him.
we've got to go with this newbie.
Yeah.
We have to go with this newbie because he's the one who really sees the movie that we
That's the
see.
vision.
And
Yes.
he was really good. It was a very good choice.
Yes. Oh, I'm back. Oh, great.
Yay.
So anything else, Susan? Anything else you need?
Well, I wanted to say my partner and I have been in contact with Paul Duff. We met him on the table,
Great.
Ah,
and he's been really nice working. It's kind of difficult back and forth from England with times and stuff.
Yes.
But the amount of time, what we have got from him has been very special, and we're still working with him.
that's great.
Great.
And
That's great.
congratulations on the potential director. That's exciting.
Yeah. It's great when things start to come together, So
Yes.
that's really,
Yes.
really neat. So anything else?
That's it.
Yay! 3 cheers. So so Adam, are there any are there any Mr. Sci-Fi questions?
Not quite yet.
Okay. Well,
Todd
there you-
Chamberlain
Hi,
is
Todd.
here. He says splendiferousness.
Yes. Well, life is good. So okay, great. So do you want to have your turn now, Adam? Now that you're ensconced?
Sure.
Go for
I
it.
can take my turn.
You
Hi,
bet.
guys.
Wow.
I'll be quick. Adam Sartain here, actor, voice actor, tuba player,
Yay.
and thank you. There's my one fan. And I also work on Space Command.
Yay.
And I'm just plugging along. Speaking of plugging, I'd like to plug a radio drama that I'm in that we've just officially launched. We had a soft launch last week, and it's now launched, and there's been over 100 downloads of it already.
Wow.
It's called Undead Radio.
Great. That's great. So
Cool.
cool. And
If you want to search that, there's just Undead Radio wherever Apple Podcasts, Stitcher.
That's great.
Wherever you can find podcasts, and we're on YouTube as well.
And also you can put that out to the table email. And
Yes.
just to let everyone know, once you're on the table email, this is an organization of thousands of people around the world. We've been going for 27 years. We have offshoots all over the country, and it's absolutely fine to put out what you're doing. So if it's a podcast, a short film, anything, we want to know each other's work. So that's very much a tenet of this organization. So go on, Adam, please.
I think that's about it for me for
Cool.
now. I am going to be helping. I mean, you know this, but for the table members at large, I'm going to be helping Marc facilitate a table read for Sweet Haven in the next few weeks. So that's going to be fun.
Great. Yes, that will be fun.
So I'm excited for that.
Cool.
And other than that, Santa work. I continue to build and get ready for the Santa season of virtual Santa visits.
We just bought a bought a tree.
They have at Target. They have the Christmas trees up, and it was funny. I was joking to the girl who worked there that we were going to first decorate it as a Halloween tree, then a Thanksgiving tree, then a Christmas tree. So we might want to start a new tradition, because the problem is that if you try to wait till December to buy these trees at Target, they're all gone except the like $200 ones. Which who wants to buy a fake tree for $200? So but it was great. So anything else, Adam? Or are you?
That's it for me.
Yay!
Can you send a link for your Santa thing? I can forward it to my nieces and nephews.
I will.
Great.
I will.
Great.
Yes.
So, I guess we don't have any Mr. Sci-Fi questions yet, Adam. Is that correct?
Let me just double check here. I'm not seeing
nothing yet. So okay, and I'm going to put out a Mr. Sci-Fi soon that lets people know that we do this on Thursday nights because I haven't really been very public about it. But cool. So let's see. So I guess Tony Holt. You're the next one on my screen. So if you want to unmute and talk.
Sure. Hi, I'm Tony Holt. I'm a friend of Hank Rover's.
Great.
He's sponsoring me for table membership.
Cool.
I worked with him on some TV movies like a year, 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
We've kept in touch. Now I'm starting to work more on my writing. Just recently graduated from college. So that's what I've been working on is working on my feature and some other projects here and there.
Great. So is there a kind of material you gravitate toward?
Yeah, I'm like a comedy kind of
cool.
That's what I like working on.
That's great. So one thing to mention, of course, is there's a lot more television being done than features. And so if one can sort of lean either way, television is not a bad idea. And
for sure.
And the different networks have writing fellowships and so forth. And a lot of the entry-level writing positions are filled that way. So just a word to the wise. And
also, the limited series has become extremely popular. So you can write a novel / comedy series.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of possibility out there. So, do you have any questions or anything you need right now?
Not right now. I think I'm just happy to observe and learn about how this works.
Cool.
For the time being.
Cool. And go ahead, Lane.
Yeah, it's just mostly what your ambition is. If you see any way in which you can help other members, that's great. I mean, even if it's, are you sure you're not fooling yourself kind of questions?
Right.
And so people can give you advice on the craft or the business. But it's a very good thing to start to get connected because it can be kind of hard and lonely. But if you have a large circle, it's surprising what you can get done.
Yeah. So, but cool. And if you want to get on the table, email David Bartlett is the one to liaison with. And again, the table is a very powerful resource because we have thousands of members, and you can send one email out that goes out to all several thousand. So it's really cool. And normally when it's not a pandemic, we actually meet in person at Marie Callender's in the Valley. But of course, those days are just a memory now. And
but this way we get to meet with people much further flown.
Yes, exactly. Well, welcome.
Yay.
Three cheers.
Thank you.
So, Adam, are there and for those who don't know what Mr. Sci-Fi is, I have a YouTube channel called Mr. Sci-Fi, and we do a simulcast with the table every Thursday night. And so if you are a science fiction fan, subscribing to Mr. Sci-Fi on YouTube is a great idea. And so, are there any Mr. Sci-Fi questions, Adam?
No, but El John Reno says hello from Scotland.
Hello.
Hi.
I love Scotland. We went to the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh.
And it was
Some years
warm,
ago.
It was unseasonably warm, which I understand it almost never is in Scotland.
It was great. We stayed at the Balmoral Hotel. So let's see. So I guess Judith.
Judith.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Judith! It's the first time I've ever seen you
Lit. Yeah, you're actually
You've always
lit.
been a silhouette.
Yes.
You reminded me of the shadow. Okay, you have to unmute. Oh, Judith, we can't hear you. Can you unmute?
We can't hear you. You have to unmute.
Can you unmute? Oop.
You're well lit but silent. There we go. Okay, go for it.
There we go.
You can thank Adam for that. He set up my home recording studio.
Great.
Thank you, Adam.
Mazel tov. Great.
Yeah. Let's see. I haven't been doing all that much. I've been taking care of my cat a lot, running back and forth to Costco to get medicine and, but I'm an actress, a singer, a narrator, a voiceover. And if anybody has any table reads, I'm happy to participate. I'm delighted to say that I'm going to be doing the Zoom table read with Marc and Elaine, which will be lovely.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that. I took a workshop of last night, a webinar with, I don't know if anybody knows Marilyn Horowitz. Marilyn has a book out, The Fear Cautious. It's the 4 questions. It's interesting, simple, 4 questions that your characters ask. She's a professor at NYU, and she has some really interesting things to say, really. I'm also working on getting my outline done for Half Dead, which I'm absolutely hysterical. It's very funny. And getting back on the horn again. It's been a rough couple of weeks, but getting back on the horn again. And I'm looking forward to doing the table read.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, Judith. Okay, 3 cheers, Judith. Yay. So, Adam, any Mr. Sci-Fi questions yet?
We do.
Yay.
Scott Baker
Hi,
has
Scott.
joined us.
Yes.
And is asking, by any chance, do you happen to know if Doug Jones deliberately chose to use the distinctive walk of George Jefferson for sorrow?
No. He the challenge was that they gave him these weird kind of hooves, these strange shoes to walk on, where he was literally walking on tiptoe. So it gave him an extremely strange gait. And so that's just what that was about. So yeah. So okay, great.
If you can find it online, Doug was on the NPR news quiz. Wait, don't.
Yes.
This past Sunday, and quite delightful.
Yes, he was.
Tendency.
He's really a wonderful man in every way, and he's of course stars in Space Command, and his face is right behind you, Adam, on your screen. So there you go. So great. So Dave, you're next on my screen. So if you want to share your verbal stylings with everyone.
That's this first number. Hey there, ho there. Happy Halloween!
Yay!
I'm wearing, as Marc is fond of showing off T-shirts, I'm wearing my Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights shirt from, I think, 97.
Wow.
And here's the lovely, because...
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
Wow, that's creepy.
That's definitely creepy.
Oh,
People at Mr. Sci-Fi, if you want to see what that image is, it's go to Google image search HHN for Halloween Horror Nights. HHN Igor, EYEGORE.
Wow.
That's the name of that character.
Well,
so
that's
anyway,
great.
Happy Halloween. I guess there's not going to be a lot of kids coming to the door, but that's okay. There never are anyway. I have to eat all the candy myself. I've taken to buying things like pretzels that aren't as destructive. Anyway, so hope everybody's doing well. We're doing all right here. I'm looking up at this upper screen, working on a couple of shots of Space Command, where there's a shot where Robert Picardo, without ruining anything, he goes from one place to another, and in the place that he arrives, we needed some backgrounds added to the shot, so that's what I'm doing now.
Great.
Yay, great.
I've been sending shots out to VFX artists all week and working on some stuff myself. I just added some those forward view screens that we were looking for in Scene 141.
Mhm.
David Bartlett will know what I'm talking about. And other than that, if you want us, I have no excuse for this. But in 2008, a friend of mine and I, my buddy JR and I, we did a series of little semi-animated pieces.
Mhm.
And just for Halloween, if you're interested, you can go to on YouTube, search for Death Brothers, actually Death Bros, BROS.
Mhm.
Many Crappy Returns. JR and I played the world's most idiotic ghosts, and they died. Well, they died by having a how long can you hold your breath contest, and it was a tie. Anyway, so in Many Crappy Returns, they decided to pass the time by having a reincarnationing off, and so it's one after the other. So anyway, so I it's old, but I posted that recently on Facebook. I'm sorry, YouTube. Other than that, I don't know what's going on. But we're just keeping busy, keeping working, staying safe, and if something else comes to mind, I will chime in. But I guess that's it so far. So be well, everyone.
Yay! Cheers, Dave. So, Adam, another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Oh, yeah, I'm the editor of Space Command.
Yeah. The
He
wonderful
sure
editor. Yes,
Wonderful.
he's a genius. He's the Stravinsky of Space Command. So there
He
you go.
keeps pulling our fat out of the fire.
Yeah, exactly. And we won't continue with that.
Yes.
So, okay, yes. So, Adam, another
So,
Mr. Sci-Fi question.
Our next Mr. Sci-Fi question comes to us from Gregory Krug,
Hello, Greg.
who asks, any new news on your possible Rod Serling project?
Yes. So I've been in communication with the estate, and they're responding very favorably. We have to wait for something else that's in motion right now before we can move forward, but it's looking very, very good. And, it's going to be very exciting. If it moves forward, if we move to fruition, it's going to be really incredible. So that's how much I can say about it at this stage. But it's a cool, super cool project. So let's see. So next, I guess, Carol Field. I guess you're next on my screen, Carol.
Hi, everybody. Coming
Hello.
here is like a diamond in the dust storm. I just want to tell you.
Thank you.
Is. I'm gonna think, oh God, I've got the table tonight. The table for Carol. Really, truly. Adam, did you have a sex change in the last week? Because on the table list it said Adam Susan instead of Adam Sartain.
Well, there you go.
Know
Well,
that?
That's a better typo than what was on my high school yearbook
Yes.
in my senior year.
Uh-huh.
It was, they removed the R and the I.
That's good.
Oh, God.
That's good.
Yeah. So
Well, that could have been a whole different career.
Also, it was really hard for me to get into that silly list this morning, too. The October 29th filter down did not come in. I'm glad you didn't know what that was. I don't know if it...
that's because I mislabeled it in the
I see.
the initial email as the 27th, because that was the day I sent it.
So the 29th emails did not come in on my thing. So
Right.
I'll go back and look at
That's
it.
why.
That was. But I'm
That's
glad
my bad.
you didn't have a sex change because we all like you like this.
Right.
Does anybody know Roar Management?
It rings a dim bulb, but not where I have an opinion about it.
Are you able to find?
Lovely conversation with a manager yesterday. He doesn't know me as an actress, but he picked up my New York Guns book. And we talked for a half hour, and I knew it was a good conversation because when I got off the phone, I had separation anxiety. I wanted to talk. I said, wait, no, I'm not done yet. I mean, it was such a nice, it was so low, such a sweetheart. Maybe he's a convict. I mean, who knows? But I don't know.
Do you know what their client list is?
I just said to him how many managers are at the place, and I forgot what he said, but he said he has 25, 25 actors and writers.
Okay.
Well, that's a heavy load, but
I know.
But find out if they have careers. I mean, if you can find out any names on the net as to who they represent, that's where you start to get a sense of, and then if there's any way you can get a connection to them through social media and say, hi, how did you find them as a rep? It's always good to do a little due diligence.
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked him, but I don't know. He might not like me enough. I don't know. We left it with, well, I guess we'll talk. It's up to him.
Well, I mean, it'd be great if he's all he presents. I've had a couple of managers that were very sweet people. They just weren't competent, but they liked me and they were really nice. They just weren't able to knock down any doors. But if he's that sweet and can open doors, that would be great. But you just have to that's the thing, you're often double checking. Some people who go into management are very supportive, very nice. They just don't have any more ability to get somebody to pick up the phone than you do.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. After, without trying to be political, after Mr. Trump went into the White House, a few weeks later, I was standing at my refrigerator. I just remember this so clearly. I was standing at my refrigerator and I said, okay, the adults have some things to contend with. How are the kids going to look at this?
Mm-hmm.
And I walked away from the refrigerator and I wrote a piece. Because there was some Jewish stuff in it. I have connections to the Jewish Journal here and the Jewish News in Detroit because I've been published both. I called Detroit the next morning and I said, I have something I wrote. They didn't care. They didn't want it. Then I called the Jewish Journal here and he said, send it, Carol. And I sent it and he called me and he said, I'm going to submit it to Washington Jewish Week, the Jewish newspaper in D.C. Miss self-esteem here. I said, why? It's not that good. Don't say that. Don't say that. He said, let me take care of it. So they sent it. They called me the next day and published it.
Wow. Congratulations.
That's great. Here it is to prove Washington Jewish Week.
Great.
And I don't think I'll read it because it's 3 pages and I don't want to bore you to death. But it's called Letter from My Niece, sort of. And it's a fictitious niece writing me her thoughts about the new president. And I remember thinking, well, it's going into the newspaper in Washington, D.C. I hope someone reads it. All I wanted to say was, I won't read it now. We've got too many other people here, but
so you're assuming there'll be somebody there who can read.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, well.
I didn't think of that, but yeah, and I hope it was well received. So I'll read it to you some other time when there's only 3 people on.
Cool.
But I just wanted to pull it back out. And
Great.
if I have the same sentiments, I just hope the kids are being fairly well adjusted right now. The kids and the pets, we have psychotherapists to go to. But, So I don't know. I think that's it.
Okay.
And I wish us a happy, safe Halloween and a happy election day.
Great. 3 cheers. Thank you. So do we have another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
We sure do. We've got a question from Yul Adamus.
Hi, Yul.
Who says, how do you write characters that are opposing to your normal beliefs?
You have to get inside them. You have to get inside them and look out through their eyes and find something that you can thoroughly believe. I mean, villains are only interesting if they're, if there's a life to them, an interior life. What would you say, Elaine?
I think that's exactly right, because if I get into somebody that I would, it's that I walk through the worldview, how they got to that worldview, which may not be my worldview, but given their worldview, they are doing the best they can and see themselves as personally heroic and doing the best they can. Or if not, they're self-loathing, but you're inside of them. And within that cage, whatever that cage is, that's where the behavior comes from. They're never doing things I disapprove of just because they're bad. They're doing it because of their worldview, and they're doing right in their view. So we both try and step inside that worldview, which may be a very damaged one, but it's how they see. Those are the eyes through which they see the world. So it's extremely interesting to talk to people without judgment who are very different from yourself and really see how they see the world, and you start to get a much more flexible point of view as to all the different ways in which people can see the same thing, look at the same thing and see a different thing.
Yeah. So great. Terrific. So let's see. I guess David Bartlett is next on our screen. Go for it. Okay. Nope. Big finger. Okay. Yes. Well, certainly it's performance art.
Yeah, well, we're not.
There we go.
Oh, finally.
Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
Answer that question. So hang on a second.
Is that, are you writing a children's locomotive?
I lip read very well. Why don't you just flap your lips and I'll tell them what you're saying.
Well, that's usually what it is. So where did he go? There he is. He's down there. Shall we? Well, while David is trying to get his act together, we can take Brian Hasek. How about you, Brian?
Sure. Hi, Brian Hasek, filmmaker, screenwriter, originally from St. Louis. Went to USC Film School.
Mm-hmm.
Been working mostly corporate for a while I did the writing, and now I just had this whole year almost off, so I've been doing a lot of storyboarding, writing. Just helped this week. I'm just helping another writer put their script together and get it cleaned up for submission. So that's it. And then, as usual, Space Command volunteer. I'll be back next week, and we'll email David and Vita about that.
Cool.
So, after that, I have a short film I'm going to be working on, so I'm sure I'll be asking for help, but nothing now. I do have a friend who, if you don't mind, I give the Zoom link to, who's also a writer.
Sure.
He's got a lot of questions that I know there are people here better suited to answer than me.
Yeah. Well, is there anything you need beyond that, Brian, at this stage?
Not yet.
Okay. Cool. Yay.
Awesome.
So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
There we go.
Yeah.
We've got a question from, I had it. There we go. The Trashed Picture Show who asks, what would be your favorite sci-fi horror? I think they're assuming film.
Yeah, Alien, definitely. It was just such a game changer when it came out, and it was just astonishing. It just blew everybody away, and I still love it. It really holds up.
The Thing comes close to.
The Thing is great too. Yeah, those would be the two. Those would definitely be the two. John Carpenter's The Thing is spectacular as well. They're great in different ways, but I heard.
And no CGI in either one.
Right. No, it's great.
God.
Those were the days. So great. So now, David Bartlett, can you join us? Are you there? I see you. David, can you hear us? Nope. Can we hear you? No? No, you sound pretty bad.
Have you been possessed?
Look out. There he goes. Okay, well, we can continue with someone else and come back to you, David, if you want to continue to dick with stuff. Okay, yay. So, Marguerite, I guess you're up. Go for it. Well, we can't hear you. There you go.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Marguerite Fair. Despite that horrible long name up there, just ignore that. Marguerite Fair.
Okay, sure.
And I'm a writer, director, producer. And last year I did my first feature, The Racist. Hi, Heidi. And it's now available on DVD. And right now I'm in development for Goddess Intervention, which is a comedy about 4 obsessive goddesses. And I want to shoot that next year, so I'm really excited about that. And I also do a web show, and this is my 5th year doing it. Laughter Talks. And we just had a great Halloween special, and I've gotten such good feedback from it. It was a lot of fun. So I always say I believe in shameless self-promotion. So if anybody has something they're working on that you want to, brag about and talk about, I create a nice reel for you from being a guest on my show.
Great.
It takes about 20 minutes to tape. It's a lot of fun. It's done via Zoom. And as you can see by my background, I'm the queen of green screen in this particular area. So it's a lot of fun. So if anybody wants to, I'll type in my email here and, call me. I'd love to. And also what I'm looking for is I'm kind of really upping my own game, and I'm learning more about cinema photography because I've dabbled with my own projects and had other people, but I really want to get to do my own projects as a director of photography.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I'm going to be on a learning curve, but what I really want is I am looking to collaborate with a sound person. Because when I work on my project next year, I like to work on projects that I've developed relationships with people, and so that they know what I'm doing to see if it's a fit for them. So if anybody's interested in that process, let me know. And if you want to talk about something, I'm more than happy to share with you. So, so that's me, Marguerite Fair.
Okay, yay! 3 cheers. And Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question by any chance?
Why, there is.
Yay.
We've got a question from Kevin Scott 76.
Great. Hi, Kevin.
Who asks, how did you come up with the title Space Command?
It's interesting. Way back when, early on, there's a great TV show from the 50s called Space Patrol. And I'm a big fan of it. And I met the lead actor and the lead writer many years later. And so at first I was looking into possibly bringing back Space Patrol and expanding out from the world they had created. But after a while of looking into that, it became very clear that wasn't, it was just, there were more problems than it was worth. And so, so we thought, okay, let's create a freestanding show. We started batting around different names. And one of my partners at the time suggested Tales of the Space Command. And I thought that was too long a title. So I just kind of whittled it down to Space Command. And this is before Trump, before, Space Force, any of that stuff. And, and so that's how that came about. But it's
partially because
yes,
we did not know
that there was a real Space Command.
Real Space Command.
And during our first Kickstarter campaign, they contacted us,
yes.
And we were worried they were either going to ask us to change the name or pull the plug on it. And they said, we love it. We want to help you. So we ended up going to Vandenberg a number of times and meeting a number of the people there. And they were just terrific. Very, very friendly and helpful, and even came onto our set when we were shooting.
But
so
had we known there was a real one, I don't think we would have pressed ahead, but we're very glad we did.
No, we probably would have called it Space Force, and then boy, would our faces have been red. So, but yeah. So David Bartlett, are you ready to rock and roll now, or are you still incommunicado?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yay.
we can.
Yes.
Wow, it's a miracle. I tried something new, so we're not going to be using the new thing anymore.
Okay, good.
Hi, I'm David Bartlett. I am a producer. I am a producer. I am a filmmaker, a teacher, and a human rights activist, and I am also the co-producer of Space Command.
Yay!
I'm also the producer of the visual effects, the keeper of the keys for anything having to do with Kickstarter, head of casting, doing quite a bit of color correction, and many other things. I'm also in charge of all the studio operations and building a new studio, which has now successfully done its first shoot, which is very exciting. And we have many sets being built for an upcoming series of shoots, a series of the consoles from Cloverfield Paradox that were purchased and have been repurposed into Space Command style consoles. And I'm going to give you a little tour of those a little bit later with our brand new favorite. She's not really an assistant. She's like a new set person, studio person. She's here. She's a runner. She's doing all kinds of things. And she is on screen right now in the form of Ronnie Collins.
Yay. So when she gets
to do a little consoles and show you the very first revealing of the very first completed console.
Cool.
So
wow.
In the meantime, if you're interested in working on Space Command, wait a second. I should probably do something by myself first. So I have a background to when I was 10 years old. I decided to make movies and moved to the LA in 1980 and started working right away. The first film I worked on was the biggest film being done at the time, a film called Under the Rainbow. You probably don't remember it. It was with Chevy Chase, Carrie Fisher, and 50 at the time called Midgets and Dwarfs, Little People as we know them now. And it was an incredible experience for me, but it was a colossal financial bomb in the box office. But the very first camera setup I ever saw was the Panavision camera on a 40-foot extension arm swooping out over the Pacific Ocean with a Queen Mary
and 200 extras in period costumes, and Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher. Chevy Chase had just come hot off of Saturday Night Live, and a Goldie Hawn film he did that was very successful.
Mhm.
And Carrie Fisher, of course, is like just finishing The Empire Strikes Back. So these guys were like superstars to me. And other people, Mako was in it. He's a Japanese actor. He's very famous at the time. And I was pretty dazzled. The entire parking lot was filled with motorhomes, custom trailers, 2 40-foot semis of wardrobe. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So it was the very first camera setup I ever saw. I was at the Laird Studios in Culver City, which was originally built by David O. Selznick. And the front of the studios had the columns from the original Tara that he had designed. And he had actually, this is what a producer of those days would do. He needed to burn Atlanta in his movie. So he bought a studio that had the entire backlot of the King Kong sets on it, among other things. So he built some Atlanta facades in the foreground of it, and he lit it on fire, and he filmed it. He burned his studio to the ground. So that's a true story. So
and he did it in one take.
He did. And the legend is that the stunt people that were standing in for Scarlett O'Hara and Rhett Butler drove past. At the moment, his brother, who was a very famous agent, stepped up with the person who they could not find to play Scarlett O'Hara. He said, "This is Scarlett O'Hara." And in front of the burning of Atlanta, Vivian Leigh stepped up for the first time, and he hired her on the spot.
Wow, there you go.
I doubt that's the way that went.
Yeah.
But it's a story. But it was certainly along those lines where the time was very tight. He did already start filming before he had Scarlett O'Hara cast. That part is true.
Yeah.
So that kind of suffices for I'm trying to tell a brand new personal story of my experiences in Hollywood every time I do a table, because the people haven't complained about the old stories, but new ones are good.
They are good.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my background then went to Low Budget Films with Roger Corman, and I was building sets with James Cameron, who's a production designer, and those set construction techniques of low budget Roger Corman have stood me very good stead here at the studio with Space Command. So I've used many of those techniques on Space Command and will continue to do so, and it's really fun doing that. So then I started working in post-production. I worked on sound design on films like Pulp Fiction and Speed and Total Recall and Predator 2 and Tremors and others. And then I got out of doing sound and I started doing, I worked with Robert Wise too. Robert Wise directed and produced The Sound of Music and West Side Story and won 4 Oscars, and he was the director of some very famous science fiction. Star Trek: The Motion Pictures one, which is, I actually like this film. You see the director's cut of the film. It's a very different film, by the way. And The Day the Earth Stood Still, and The Haunting, which is an amazing film where you never see the ghost, but it's terrifying through the whole thing. And he was also the editor of Citizen Kane. So it's not a bad first person to give you advice. So I got out of doing sound design. I started doing my own films and producing and directing and writing independent shorts and features. Now I have 65 film festival awards. So if anybody needs any advice about working in the major studios or winning film festival awards, I can probably give you some help. So anyway, the Space Command part is that Space Command is needing people to work for volunteers and also for paid positions. So the person that you talk to about that is me. Pretty much the person you talk to about anything having to do with Space Command is me, but especially those two things. So if you're at all interested in those two things, we've got a big volunteer day coming up here where we have to move. Let's see this here tonight. We don't have any of our folks that did that move last time. The pallets that we used in the Space Command set have been stored here, and they need to be moved to another storage space to make room for more sets that we're building. That's going to take quite a number of people for a couple of days, so I'll be putting the word out about that soon. It's probably going to be a week from Saturday. That's not set yet. It's probably going to be that. So if anybody's interested in doing that, you can come out. We have masks. We're COVID compliant. I had the shoot that we did. I'm certified COVID compliant, and my assistant at the time was Vita, and she also was certified. And we had another person on the set who was only doing that. James, who is here, a table member, he is certified, and he came and he did that for us that day. And we've been working for a while now, and no one's ever had the slightest problem, and it's been great. So we'll be doing that too when we do the volunteer day. So the last thing is a table email. If you want to get on the table email, or you don't know what it is, and you want to find out what it is, or if you're having trouble with your current table email, you can contact me about that too. So I'm going to type in my email here in the chat to everyone so you can all get it. And that's how you can reach me for all these things. So I'm at the studio right now, and the office I'm in is the production design office. You can see a bunch of stuff on the wall back there. And that is drawings and pictures and whatnot from things that we're working on. And then we'll give you a much better tour when Ronnie does her bit. I will operate the camera so she can show you something that she personally helped finish today that even Marc and Elaine have not seen yet. So this will be lots of fun.
Great.
So that's kind of it for me.
Okay.
If you have any questions, just chat to me now or send me an email and we can go from there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, David. And so I guess we should go to you, Ronnie, and you can, I guess that's the idea. I don't know. So you can unmute, I suppose, and do whatever you're going to do.
Operate. Once you get going.
Woo-hoo.
There you go.
All right, I'm unmuted.
Okay,
Yay.
great.
Yay.
Okay,
Let me turn my volume up so I can hear you guys.
great.
We're getting the light switch on, and then all right.
Okay,
I'm gonna switch camera angle.
okay. So let's see what happens. So they're at the Space Command studios. There.
I'll give you a second here.
Okay. Let's see
There
what
we
we
go.
see. Okay.
There she is.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Well, this is where we make the Space Command magic. Set pieces, all the fun stuff. You can see a lot of it still packaged up, yet to be on display.
Uh-huh. Cool. And that's only one of our two spaces. Yeah. Cool. Okay, great. Wow. And that's one of the diagnostics.
Oh, wow.
This is the one that I personally had taken painting thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Wow.
very beautiful, gorgeous black.
Mhm.
And then today, a lot of the electrical went in, and it looks amazing.
Huh.
Get the light.
Wow.
Get the
Cool.
light, and the other
Wow.
light is
Wow.
back.
That's great.
You see some of
Wow.
it here,
That's great.
all of it down there.
Wow.
He's gonna go turn off the big light, and you can see it in the dark.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Cool. There it is.
Oh,
Wow.
my gosh.
That's very neat.
That's
very, very
cool.
neat. That's going to work.
Oh, my.
That's great.
Oh, that's cool.
Cool,
It also
cool.
has these cool translights on it.
Yeah, wow.
This on there.
Neat.
And that spot there is going to be an iPad with
Yeah.
graphics on it, and that's
Right.
going to be a 32-inch monitor with graphics on it.
Great.
Oh,
Great.
my.
And that's
And-
another iPad.
Wow. That's great.
And it's got these panels in the front too, which are cool on the legs.
That's great. That's great.
Wow.
Well, that's production value. So good.
Well, now
Don't you
that's a
agree?
toy.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. Great.
Yay, thank you.
Okay, yay. Thank you.
That thing before it's painted.
Great. That's neat. That looks great. So,
Oh, and I should say, I'm Ronnie Collins. I'm an actress.
yes.
For these past couple of days, I have been assisting, and I'm grateful to be working with Space Command and getting some of their scenes and sets put together.
Cool.
Oh,
This
That's
is
wow.
great.
here on our wonderful magic hour, which happens pretty much every night out here.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
You can't quite see it now, but this is usually a spectacular sunset.
That's great. That's
It
great.
doesn't hurt. The smoke fires are still burning out here.
Hmm.
It gets a little ashy sometimes.
Wow.
Why
Now,
don't you hold that?
also,
All right, everybody, I have
Right on.
no idea what you're seeing here.
Huh.
But let's see. Last time I spoke to you guys, I was working on updating my reel, I do believe.
Yes.
And right now, if there's any technical people out there that would be willing to have me ask them questions, I'm trying to download some of my stuff from YouTube, and that's already been up there, and I'm having technical issues. So having some help on that would be kind of nice. Just like ask questions too, because there's a few things I can't quite get.
If you send me links, I can download anything you want and send it back to you.
Oh,
And
I can help with that as well.
great.
okay. I wouldn't mind learning how to do it too.
I'll
But
get you
I
hooked up with
appreciate that
them.
as well.
Yeah.
I'll get you hooked up with them.
Now,
Now we're going to do some more thing Ronnie's been working on too.
hmm
We got more.
This is Studio 2.
okay. There we go. Interview.
This is another studio.
Uh-huh.
This is the new secret item that's going on. This is going to be the corridor entrance. Still being worked on.
I'm 5'7".
Cool.
Oh, wow.
And over here we've got these cave walls that we've used many times.
But now they've been retextured.
12 of those. And now they're going to be an alien spaceship interior. There's a whole bunch of them. And then these.
Wow.
That's the white version of that other console.
Cool.
And what we're doing is we're having a white one that's all white, a black one that's all black, and then we have white trim and black trim, and we're switching them. So we have 4 consoles for 2.
Great.
Oh, great.
Cool.
We're going to have these monitors, so we can switch them out too. So we only have to buy 1 set of monitors. We don't need 4 sets of monitors.
Neat. That's great.
And these little guys here, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, we call them. These are going to be little
Cool.
diagnostics things.
Wow.
Yeah.
For the medical bays.
Great.
And they're all black on white, which is cool. There's another one which is going to have a monitor attached to it.
Oh my.
Great.
Here's the one that used to be black. We used to call the monolith. It's now white with black trim.
Looks good.
That's
And that's where we're going to
great.
put the exoskeleton display.
Great. Cool.
At least that's the idea.
Yeah.
So
Great.
there you go. This is her new world.
Yay.
Yay.
Well, 3 cheers.
Yay.
Well, that's great. Thanks. Now, one thing I was going to mention is that for those of you who are actors and who want to help Space Command, we're going to be shooting a spaceport terminal, a departure gate, where we'll have Mira Furlan and some of our actors in the foreground saying their lines, but we're going to have a lot of people passing behind them and in front of them, and that'll be green screen. So if we own 11 spacesuits now, and so we want to put our actors in spacesuits and just one at a time shoot them walking past, going this way and that, so that we can drop it in foreground and background when we assemble it in green screen. So so if anyone wants to do that, just coordinate with David. And we have steampunk spacesuits. We have futuristic spacesuits from Cloverfield. We've got a spacesuit that Bob Mackey designed that was used on the Carol Burnett show. We've got a spacesuit that was actually used in The Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, the original versions of those shows. So there's a lot of cool stuff. And
Mark,
yes,
I forgot one thing too. We need one special volunteer. We have a very small woman's suit that was built with an exoskeleton pattern on the outside. We need to have it tried on by someone, but it has to be someone that's about 5'2" or 5'3".
Yes.
So
yes.
if there are any ladies out there,
that sounds
sure.
Yeah. That's that.
And I would love to have them come out and try it on so we can take some pictures.
Well, there's someone sitting next to me who's 5'3" or so, and I think with enough puppies given to her or some other inducement, she could, I'm sure, model that lovely outfit.
But I think there are other small ladies.
Yeah, but okay. I think we should definitely do that sooner rather than later. Absolutely. So cool.
That's
yay! But that was great.
So
3 cheers! Yay!
Great.
Thank you all.
Yeah,
Thanks.
We're eager to see your reel.
Thank you so much. That's great, Ronnie.
Wonderful,
thank you.
work.
Thank you. Looking forward to.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes. That's going to be great.
I can't wait for you guys to see the updated one.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
for
great.
those of you that remember Beta, my old assistant, she has gone back to school now because the government won't let her be employed by us.
Huh.
So to stay here, she has to go back to school and cannot get paid by us. So
that sucks.
Volunteers around the edges here a little bit, but it does. So
yeah.
I have a new assistant whose name is Gabby, and we'll introduce her here one of these nights too. She's been on the table before, but she hasn't really been formally introduced as my assistant. But that's who's going to be able to take over any kind of questions you might have about stuff with me in the future.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. Yay, David. So now back to Adam. Any more Mr. Sci-Fi questions, Adam?
Yes, we've got another question here. Another question which shows how dedicated your Mr. Sci-Fi followers are.
Yes.
Because you mentioned this before. El Johnarino asks, have you had any luck getting hold of a profit and loss for a known show? If so, can you say anything about it, or is it to stay confidential?
We're in the process of acquiring the data we need. It's not difficult for us to budget out the production costs, because that's what we're doing with Space Command ongoingly. That's the easy part. The hard part, because the studios are so creative with their bookkeeping is to find out what the real profit numbers are. Let us just say that one friend of ours was able to reveal that his successful show generated a profit of $2 billion. And so that's, that's useful to know. But we'll be getting more information over the next week or so, and it's moving along well. But it definitely is a
challenging and expensive.
Yeah, it takes heavy lifting, absolutely. And most of my friends are contractually forbidden to share those kind of numbers, because I've been in communication with a lot of my friends who are extremely high end, and they've been very supportive, and but not able to give us documents, which is what we need at this stage. So there you go. So let's see who's next.
Without revealing the name, did you have any success in getting the that blurb you were looking for from a very famous person?
Guillermo said some very complimentary things. Guillermo del Toro. Yeah, said some very complimentary things about the Showrunners Network, and I've just sent him an email saying, can we use that as a blurb? I think he'll probably say yes, but I'm not going to use it until he says yes. But it was very gratifying. It was very good. So, okay, cool. And let's see. So Hank Grover, I think you've been here since the dawn of time. So go for it, if you can. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hank Grover. I'm a longtime table member. I work primarily as a line producer on television movies. I've also done some bigger projects. I was our department coordinator on The Young Pope, which was an HBO series. A lot of my stuff has ended up on Lifetime TV. And I'm sort of branching out a little bit. I was approached by a manager in New York, wants to represent me for acting.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to do a little bit of that.
Cool.
Got an audition, got a call back, didn't get the commercial, but it's nice to be nominated.
Yes. Good.
Yes. David, I definitely want to be a spaceman walking in that scene. So please let me know when that is.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a camera hog, basically. So I'm going to see what comes along, whether it's production work or acting. I'm open to both, and just looking to see what's out there now.
Well, that's great, Hank. And just one thing to mention in terms of the spacesuits are, because I sort of keep an eye out on eBay and other places where they're getting rid of spacesuits from different productions. So the spacesuits the Space Command has now have been worn by Gugu Mbatha Raw, Jack Klugman, Ross Martin, Bob Hope, Lucille Ball, who else? I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch. It's really a who's who of Hollywood. It's pretty amazing, and still going strong. Every month or two something pops up, and and as we expand, I'm looking at more and more science fiction sets that were built for different productions, because again, with the Twilight Zone companion, when I wrote that, Rod shot at MGM and he used everything from any production MGM had ever done, including Forbidden Planet. So that's informed my methods when I was on Sliders at Universal and now, of course, because the best source for science fiction costumes, props, and sets is a big budget science fiction movie that tanked because no one saw it and they poured a ton of money into it. And particularly if you look at those Cloverfield Paradox spacesuits, it's amazing the amount of care and detail that went into them. So there's a lot of fun to be had. And that steampunk spacesuit that Benedict Cumberbatch wore, it's so complicated that literally, and David, this is something you should know, I have a huge amount of photographs that show how it's put together when you assemble the pieces, because it's very complicated, but definitely distinctive. So anything you need, Hank?
Just need people to consider me for work.
Sure.
Work hard.
And how can they see your work? How can they see your work? What's the easiest way for them to see samples of your work?
Well, you were UPM on these different productions, right?
Yeah, I have an IMDb page and I have an actor reel.
You do have an actor reel. Okay.
So are you leaning toward, is it about 50-50 in terms of UPM jobs or acting jobs, or where are you leaning now?
Kind of leaning towards acting. It's
sure.
Not as difficult as being a UPM. You don't have to worry about the crew. You just got to worry about you and your acting partners and the director.
Yes. Okay, great. And but definitely, I think we should be using you as an advisor a lot more in terms of some of the production logistics we're going up against, because we love having people who know their stuff and can tell us a trick or two, because production is a monster, as you know, and it's so interesting because it's usually not so much an aspect of cost as simply the people who are a part of your team who know the shortcuts and who know how to do stuff where it looks great but isn't as expensive as it looks. It's really interesting. I'm the only writer who wrote for both Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5. And I remember, everyone was sort of collegiate. We all knew each other. And at one point, I remember Mike Okuda was on the design team on Deep Space Nine. And he was so eager to be able to sit down with the design team on Babylon 5 and just give them a few pointers on how they can make those sets look more expensive. Because it's exactly the challenges they had on DS9. And you'd think they'd be competitive with each other, but they weren't. They really wanted to be of help to each other, and I loved that, and it was fascinating. I loved studying the production of how all that stuff was done. So anything else for now?
I think that's about it. Glad to be here. Thank you for accepting my friend Tony as a new member.
Oh yeah, he's great.
So
great.
He is.
Okay.
Tony not only was a PA on my shows, he came into ADR and he did all these voices for me.
That's great. That's great. Well, lovely.
Great, yeah.
Well, 3 cheers. Yay, Hank. And one thing I want to mention to everyone, if you just want something fun to look at, both Profiles in History and the Prop Store, these are two different places that auction off Hollywood memorabilia. They have auctions coming up, and if you go on profiles.inhistory.com or propstore.com, you can look for free. You can download a PDF of their new auction catalogs, and the stuff they have is astonishing. They've got the chest burster up for auction from Alien. They've got Scarlett O'Hara's dresses. They've got Oscars, genuine Oscars from the golden age of Hollywood. They have just on and on and on and on, thousands of amazing things. 007 stuff. They have Ursula Andress's bikini from the whichever James Bond movie she was in, whether it was Dr. No or From Russia with Love. And just amazing things. Marilyn Monroe's dresses. Phenomenal. So if you just want to have fun looking at this stuff and just taking a stroll down memory lane, it's well worth the time and effort, and it's free. And you can do it in your own home, so you won't get COVID. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes, we've got a question from Hayes494.
Hi.
Who asked, would you like to see a character who suffers from depression?
Would I like to see a character
I suffer from depression and would like to see more characters in sci-fi who represent mental illness.
Yes, as opposed to the people behind the scenes. So he was suggesting characters on Space Command who have depression. Is that correct, Adam? Because you dropped out at one point. Oh,
Adam?
Oh, we can't hear you. It's okay. Yes, sure, of course. That's a very interesting subject. The challenge, of course, with it is how do you have a character who's got depression where it still the story still maintains momentum. And so it's really more thinking of characters in emotional crisis, which we do in many of our characters. But it's a very good suggestion, and I'll definitely chew on it and think about it, because I think it's a very valid.
There's Barbara Bain's. It's not depression per se,
right?
It is, mental illness.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's Elaine wrote that monologue. If you look at the pandemic episode of Space Command, it's Ripple Effect, the 2-hour episode we did. Barbara Bain's character definitely was mentally ill. Though Barbara Bain herself is wonderful to work with.
She is.
But
that was someone who was at war with themselves. Which is, very inherently dramatic.
Mm-hmm. It was fun. So let's see
what was the one? Was it Nicolas Cage where the long monologue?
Adaptation.
Adaptation is very good.
That's an amazing. Yeah, that's an amazing opening.
Where somebody who's like a long opening of him destroying himself.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Yeah. No. Very, very fun. So Bonnie Janofsky, why don't you take your turn?
Okay, I'm Bonnie Janofsky, composer, songwriter.
Great.
So this was an interesting week. This week on Tuesday, I did an interview that was on Instagram Live. It was on Unison Orchestra Live.
Huh.
and was interviewed for my composing, but also it had to do with the Musicians Union election.
Wow.
We have some people involved with Unison Orchestra that are really supporting our slate, so talked a lot about that. And so it was interesting. Oh, and I can put in the chat, I now have the direct link to the recording of the interview.
Oh, great.
And, yeah, so I'll do that. And then now I know on November 7th, I have 2 pieces being played on an online concert for Sigma Alpha Iota Pasadena Alumni Chapter. So that's a music sorority. And yeah, I'm actually experimenting with something. Of course, being online, some of the people are filming their performances, but I'm using 2 excellent MP3 recordings, one of a huge orchestral piece and one of a big band piece. So I said, well, sometimes in workshops, they actually put the score. So I thought they might not want that for a concert, but they said, great. So now I'm experimenting with some different things and just to have the pages turn as the music's playing. So that'll be interesting. And some people recommended something called ScreenFlow or DaVinci, this remote, or of course iMovie. And anyway, if anyone has any ideas on that, but some friends, I have some really good information now on that. Let's see, what else? Working on several different projects. And now, finally, I think I keep saying I'm going to update my website, but I think I'm pretty much probably going to go on Bandzoogle. I mean, I've heard of Bandzoogle, Wix. Bandzoogle is very much, very related to music. So a lot of my musician friends have talked about that. Yeah, just anything anyone needs musically. Songwriting. I've done a lot of film, musical theater, big band jazz, a lot of different styles. When I do my film scores, I tend to use live players rather than synthesized, but I'd rather use 7 or 8 live players than a huge synthesized orchestra. The live players just bring so much to the score. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for now. So, yeah.
Oh, so you're just sitting around, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where you get the energy, but good for you.
3 cheers, Bonnie. Yay.
Yeah.
3 cheers. Great. And so Adam, do we have another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes, we do.
Great.
We've got a question from Scott Baker. Yeah.
Cool.
Who asks, did either of you have the pleasure of knowing Mr. James Amazing Randi? Would you consider writing a character who's the ultimate skeptic debunker, perhaps of a lead character's sacred cow?
Yes, I admire the Amazing Randi, and I've certainly listened to a number of interviews of him. I don't think I've met him. You know, I cross the paths of so many people. We live very close to the Magic Castle, which is a wonderful, wonderful Victorian mansion that's a club for magicians, and I've been there a couple times, and it's really terrific. But I admire him. I admire, you know, people like Bill Nye the Science Guy. Anyone who basically stands up for science and is against fakery and quackery and, you know, con men is okay in my book.
I believe Randy lived in Florida for many years.
Yeah. But you know, it's but the challenge always, of course, writing a skeptic character is that you don't really want characters who are sort of like on their soapbox. You know, drama has a different purpose than, you know, documentary or real life things, news. It's not journalism. And so you just have to be careful how you introduce those kind of characters, because you're mainly telling a story and you want it to be inspiring and moving. And you always have to be very careful about, your characters all have a viewpoint, but you don't want to be speechifying. You know, it's you just have to cover your tracks a little bit. So I'm not averse to that kind of a character at all, but I would have to find a story and a setup that would work with that kind of character. So, you know, that's how that works. So cool. So let's see. I'm looking over who's who and what's what. William Garcia, I guess you're next.
Hi, William.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
Good.
Cool. I've been in the East Coast for I I guess it was for about 2 or 3 months, and just got back a couple of weeks ago. And been doing well. For those of you that don't know me, I'm William Garcia. I'm a producer. Been in the film industry for like 30 years or so, and a table member. I don't know how many years I've been a table member. I actually started in Miami, so it must be, I don't know, over 10 years or so. I've been doing okay. Been pretty busy. Followed, which some of you know, is a horror movie that was released during the pandemic. It did very, very well, not just in the drive-in theaters, but also on Google Play and iTunes and all that. And the distributors wants to do a sequel. I am not going to do Followed 2. I am done with that. It's like I don't want to get involved, but that's positive. So I have that going on. And we're right now in post-production of Samland. I was able to finish raising the money for that movie, which I was very surprised, especially during COVID. So I met with a family office over Zoom and locked the deal. And right now we're in visual effects. And the film should be finished before Christmas. It definitely helps when you have budget and we can actually go to a post house. So that's like very, very exciting. My feature film Tension is still in development. We're supposed to start in January. I just completed my budget, and I got to tell you, COVID-19 expenses and insurance is crazy. It's like my cost is in the millions of dollars. I have exactly $2.2 million in just COVID testing, managers, housing, insurance, for a $12 million movie.
Wow.
So the numbers are just insane.
Screwy. That's really screwy.
And then I've been consulting for Disney Plus. Actually, Disney, I can't give too much information about it, but they're going to be shooting a series in January. Napa Valley.
Wow.
It's a remake of an older show. I can't mention it. Once it has gone public, but once they say, hey, we're shooting, and then I can talk a little bit. So I've been consulting with their COVID supervisor, going over the plan. They're right now in prep, and shooting starts in January till mid-February.
Great.
And it's an old show that they're revamping.
Cool.
What I got going on, but I have a question for you, Mark.
Yeah.
I've been pitching, and I've done series before, and we were in discussion with Peacock on a writer's room, and I wanted to get your opinion on something.
Sure.
What has been your experience if you had 10 episodes, 30 minutes each? What should the size of your writer's room be? And I'm talking writer's room, your staff writers, your story editors,
right.
Your writer's assistant. What's your opinion on like 10, 30-minute show?
Sure. Well, I mean, if it was Elaine and me, we could write all of them, of course. But I mean, that's really the most efficient way if you get like, 1 or 2 really. Well, here's the thing of it. It's a really interesting subject because when I started in series television, basically we would get 22 episode orders. And it would be 11 of those would be freelance and 11 would be in-house. The largest writing staff I was ever on was 3 people. Okay. Basically. So like on Sliders, we had a 22 episode order and the showrunner wrote 1 of those 22, but then he was basically overseeing production from then on. So the other 21 episodes were written in their entirety by me and the other 2 writers who were on the show. And we would take pitches every day. And we bought 11 scripts, but we knew that almost all of those would be page 1 rewrites because we were day to day on the show and knew the characters and knew the continuity of what we were doing. Now, over the years, freelance has pretty much died. There's no such thing really anymore. And they basically, when a show begins that season, they staff the show. The problem is that what they end up doing is hiring, like often they'll hire like 20 writers, many of which will be writer teams because they get paid the same as an individual writer. And so it's 2 for 1. The problem is ultimately, there's two problems. One is that about half of those writers, turns out, they can't write the show. So they spend their term on the show writing their spec feature, writing their spec pilots, just basically sitting in their office and earning a shitload of money, but not actually contributing to the show in any way. Meantime, the other 10 writers are the ones who are actually writing the show. But even 10 writers is too many, because unless it's a small number of people, you're almost never going to get to agreement. And so you burn time. And you have to feed, there's two phases on any TV show. One is pre-production, when you've got plenty of time and you can fuck around forever, and then production starts and you are feeding scripts into that production maw as fast as you can, and it is a race to the finish. And that machine is hungry. And so realistically, I like small writing staffs, but when you hire them, you have to make sure that there are people who can really do the job. There are several different skills that you need for a writing staff. You need one guy who, if everything crashes and burns, he can outline a story on a Friday, get it approved, write the shooting draft over a weekend, and Monday you go right into prep, and he knows his shit to a degree where there are going to be no exploding cigars. He really knows his shit. And you need a guy with those muscles, whether it's an hour show or a half-hour show. You need someone ideally who can write an hour script in 2 days, and it'll be shootable and it won't suck. Okay. You also need the guy who is the idea guy, where he can look at a board and say, okay, here's a crazy idea from left field, but plug it in there and the story will work. You need the structural guy who can look at a structure of a show and say, okay, this is where it's not working and why it's not working. You need the guy who can fix someone else's script, where it's like, okay, he'll just go in and wade in and fix it and make it work. Now, a lot of your writers might have all of those skills or most of those skills. They also have to be collaborative to a degree where they're not going to tear up the floorboards every fucking day. They're going to be part of the solution, not the problem. So works well with others. There's something, my friend David Simpkins has something he calls the elevator test, which is, could you stand to be trapped in an elevator with this person? Because you're going to be in a room with them for a year, or at least 9 months, or however long, prep and production takes. And by the way, you also need the guy who can do the production rewrites. So if you're, depending on whether or not your team is where the writers are, or whether they're off in Toronto or New Orleans or something, but you need the guy where he can get a call at 6 p.m. and say, okay, tomorrow morning we discovered that the ranch we were going to be shooting at is unavailable because of a hoof and mouth outbreak, and so we have to make that an interior in a hotel lobby, and you have the guy who can overnight do that on a script, go through all the scenes that were going to be on the ranch and rewrite them to be in the hotel lobby or whatever, and you also need the guy who's got the vision for the show, the voice of the show, who can write the characters, backwards and forwards. He's got the character voice, and and again, any writer worth his salt in series TV can do most of those things, if not all of them. I certainly can do all of them, and and also they have to know the history of television to a degree where they'll know if something is a ripoff of another show. And sometimes you can do something where you say, okay, let's do The Guns of Navarone and mix it with Roman Holiday or whatever, and that's fine because you're covering your tracks and just kind of doing a tip of the hat, which is different than saying, okay, let's rip off this movie that came out last year, because the one is shitty and everyone's going to see what you're doing and they'll make your show crap, and the other is like, okay, that's clever, So that's some of it.
Well, that gives me an exact idea. Of how many people and stuff.
Yeah.
The only difference is that now with streamers,
yes,
they want an entire season, so it's a little different than if you're doing a weekly.
Yes,
it's like they want everything completed, done. Now it's 8 episodes or 10 episodes. Right. That's the common.
But are you saying that
it answers my question?
Are you saying that they want all the scripts before they roll camera?
No, what they usually want is they want the entire arc of the season,
right?
And then they want at least the first 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's standard. And again, you need, of course, a showrunner who's got the vision of the show and the voice of the show. And some showrunners put everything through their typewriter, so to speak, and they rewrite everything, and they basically piss on everything. But others hire writers who can write, respect their writers, and allow them to do their job, and they're not micromanaging. And I prefer the latter simply because that way the writing staff has a sense of authorial voice on the shows that get shot, and they're going to invest more of themselves in the writing, because they're going to know that what they're writing is going to be what airs. So additionally, it's not a bad idea to hire writers who've worked with each other before and like each other and have worked together well, because again, and having diversity is good. Having an age spread is good. So you might have young writers and older writers, but they have to work well together. They have to kind of be on the same wavelength, so that's some of it, Also, I found that some comedy guys can write drama, but you have to be very, very careful, because the writer's room in comedy are very different from the writer's room in drama. For instance, when I was producer on Sliders, our co-executive producer, who was one of the 3 writers on the show, had been the writer on WKRP in Cincinnati. And he was great on Sliders because he loved history. He was very well read in history, and also was a very good satirist. So he was a really good choice. He was an older guy named Bill Dial, but he really brought a lot to the mix. So that's some of it.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. 3 cheers, William. Yay. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
We do, from another frequent commenter, Arkansas Big Dog Hensley.
Hi.
It sounds like a wrestler from the WWE, right?
Yes.
And now Arkansas Big Dog Hensley.
There you go.
Like
that should be on your voicemail, Big Dog.
Right?
So
but the question is, how hard is it to develop new aliens to introduce to people?
It's an aspect of budget, because personally I believe that when we meet alien life, particularly intelligent alien species, they're not going to be like us at all. I mean, I think of things like octopi, things like that, things that are completely non-human. But of course, the less human, the harder it is to pull it off, because it's not just putting a little rubber piece on their nose. And so for instance, in Space Command, the species are not humanoid, and that's taken time and effort to design and build,
money.
and money. And but it's worth it. It's worth it, because then you can have something really, really cool and something we haven't seen before. So that's absolutely. So let's see. So I guess Mike, you're next. Mike Lopez, go for it. Oh, we can't hear you.
Mike?
You have to unmute. Ooh, acid flashback. So you need to unmute. It's not unmuted, Mike. Let's see. Will it unmute? Hold on, he's working on it.
Mike looks like he's in conversation with somebody other than us.
Are you in conversation with someone not us, Mike? Mike? Uh-oh.
Get back to him.
Maybe. Well, we'll get back to him, as you said. We can't hear you, Mike. So okay, well, why don't we go to Heidi, and then we'll come back to Mike, as Dave Edison was suggesting. Heidi, do you want to take your swing of things?
Oh, all righty. Hello, my name is Heidi Miro. I am a logger transcriber and production assistant. So cool. I have been working hard at my job, just logging, transcribing for a reality show. This has been a bit more than a year now, so I'm really happy to be working. Anyway, I am available on the weekends if you need a production assistant to help out. Hello, Marguerite.
Great.
It's great to work with you. But yeah, just let me know if you need anything.
Great, cool. Yay! Features Heidi. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
You got it. Let's do. We've got a question from Rose Kirby.
Yay! Hi, Rose.
Coming to us from, if she's still on, I don't know.
The
question is, what mood? Let me see if I can decipher this. What kind of music do you keep or lose for forgiveness, and what type of scenes do you cut or keep or play with?
Okay, Forgiveness is the second 2-hour story on Space Command. We've shot 1 hour of it, and now we're shooting the second hour. Music comes sort of near the end. Once we've got the whole thing put together and you can really see what the mood is and the tone is, and then David Rakelin will do the music as he has with the first hour of the show. In terms of scenes that we keep and scenes that we lose, usually that's in the writing, in the script phase, because it's so expensive once you're rolling camera and you have everyone up and running and everyone in costume and makeup and all of that, that you don't want to be making decisions. You don't want to cut whole scenes at that stage. So it's very rare that we'll cut an entire scene. That'll much more be in when we're writing the scripts. Every now and then you'll say, oh, well, we can trim that scene, or we can take that moment out, or whatever. But that's, that's as maybe once you get the edit together and you say, oh, okay, this is taking a little more time than it needs to, and we can, do that. But it's rare that you'll cut an entire scene in a TV episode. So let's see. So Mike, are you back with us, or do you want to take?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us? Do you want to take your turn, or
can you unmute? Mike, can you unmute?
He might be otherwise engaged. We're not
Marc,
sure.
Are you there? Can you hear us?
Well,
there should be a little thing. I've just put a little thing that says "Ask to unmute." So you should. There should be a little pop-up mic on your screen.
Yeah. Oh, we don't know.
That says unmute.
But we can. Let's see.
So I can't do it.
There you go. Okay.
Is it my turn?
Yes. Now we can hear you. Yes.
I just got a call from a pollster. So
well, there you go.
I didn't want to pass this opportunity to tell him what I thought. Anyway, my name is Mike Lopez.
Great.
Got a little bit of a history. I've been with the table a number of years. I was a minister, cop, and now I'm a filmmaker. Everything's going real well. I don't know. Many of you know who my roommate Jim Metropole is. He took a little bit of a turn for the worse.
Oh dear.
Apparently the stroke is beginning to affect his sense of humor.
Huh.
And he no longer laughs at my jokes.
Oh dear.
So we know that there's something wrong there. I'm not sure what it is. I'm going to talk to the doctor.
Did he laugh at your jokes before?
Yeah.
He always.
Yeah.
Yes. He always laughed at my jokes as long as he was unconscious. I don't know what it was. But anyway, other than that, he's doing real well. He's doing real good. We're very happy with him.
I like the beard thing he got going on, the little Max Maven look he got going there.
Oh, you like that? Yeah. Well, it was gray, and it made me look real old, so I decided to give myself a little bit of a change there.
Yeah, that's good. Looks good.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I don't know, it might help because I'm going to be acting in my next project that we're doing. We're filming it in December. A short film, 15 minutes. I'm really looking forward to it. It's about an ex-cop that helps a transgender woman regain her self-respect.
Great. Sounds great.
I got a lot of. I was actually a quarterfinalist in a couple of screenplay contests, and I got a lot of good coverage on it, and so I'm really looking forward to filming this thing. Other than that, everything's going well. I've got everything I'm gonna need. Just really everything's going well. I'm really surprised how good the COVID has been to me. It's given me time to take care of business, be creative, write things. So, COVID is a bad thing, and I hope nobody gets it. Fortunately, Jim and I have not had it because we wear a mask everywhere we go.
Good.
Just because we're in high risk groups.
Yes.
So we don't fool around with that.
No.
I mean, regardless of how you feel about it, Jim and I, we always wear a mask everywhere we go. So,
Good.
So he's like a dad to me. I feel really bad if something were to happen to him.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm so glad that you guys have each other, and so is there anything else you need, Mike?
Yeah, there is one thing I do need for my project. we're having a table reading this Sunday, and I need someone to narrate.
Huh. Okay.
I've got the whole cast. We're getting together. I've got a director. I got everything I need. I'd like to have a narrator there.
Okay.
Someone to read stage directions.
Someone to read. Yeah. Someone to read all the stage and everything. I will feed you if you do come and help out. Other than that, we're just going to have to improvise. But it would be nice so that everybody can concentrate on their roles and the job that they're doing, other than reading the script.
Okay.
I'm in where? Sunday.
It's at my place this Sunday, 1:00 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's a 15-minute film, so it won't take that long. But it's just something that I thought of that would probably really help in the long run.
Okay.
So I don't know. Should I put my email in case you want to?
Sure.
Yes,
you can
please.
put it on the thing, and also you can put that out to the table. I'm sure someone will be happy to jump into the fray. So that'll be great.
Okay. So if any of you guys need have a project that has some kind of a police element to it, let me know. I've got equipment. I've got everything you would need to make a realistic police thing for your project. So let me know.
Okay. Yay. 3 cheers.
Well, we got a
What are they?
special request from
Yes.
David Bartlett, who has to leave.
David Bartlett has a special request.
He has to leave the studio, and he
Okay.
wanted to have communication with Marc Gershowitz.
Marc Gershowitz.
So if
Okay.
he could go next, that would
Yeah,
be
Marc
great.
Gershowitz can go next, of
Yes.
course.
So before David, or else David's going to have to sleep in the studio.
Okay. Well, there you go. Pretty crazy. Okay. Great.
A little worried about what this communication is.
Yeah. Well, okay. Keep going. Go for it.
Okay, so before we get to David, I guess my name is Marc. I'm an editor. I've lost all faith in humanity this week.
Jesus.
I've actually lost all faith in people I work with.
What kept you?
These are the things that have been happening to me. A client comes to me, says, I have this project. It's real easy. Will you do it for this price? I said, sure. And then today, right before I got on here, I had to call them and say, these notes you've given me, this is no longer easy. I'm no longer doing it for this price. And then they whine and complain, but you promised. It's like there's a difference between something that's going to take a day and then something that's going to take a week.
Mm-hmm.
And be honest up front. I'm about to put out my last episode, or the next episode of the podcast, The Screen Forum, which I've been having a lot of issues with. Because of how the last interview went down, not because of the person we interviewed, but for other reasons, which is also kind of why it's probably going to be my last. It definitely is going to be my last episode of the podcast we're saying for creative differences.
Mm-hmm.
Although my co-host says he will be continuing with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been causing a huge headache for me for months. So we're moving on with that, which is actually making space for my next thing, which is going to be something that something I want to do. There's a podcast that I want to do, and I should have done to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Starting next Tuesday, work is going to lighten up, but I've got work coming in for Yosemite, and they are the most pleasant people to work with so far. Not necessarily the best footage they send me, but the actual relationship has been pretty great.
Great.
So I'm looking forward to that. It's just between now and Sunday, I'm dealing with some pretty interesting people that has been keeping my life very, very interesting, and I can't wait until these projects are done. David's probably wondering if I'm talking about him, and you're not included in that bunch.
Mm-hmm. Good.
But yeah, I mean that's kind of it. I'm just kind of the same old. Still dealing with a graphics guy. The second graphics guy is pretty much finished with all his graphics. I'm waiting for one shot. And where's Earl? I'm going to look at his picture as I say this. I got one shot left, which should hopefully be next week, and this picture will be locked. One graphic left.
I'm gonna be busy next month. We'll talk.
Then we'll deal with it the way we got to deal with it. We'll talk. 'Cause this is not on you. You have been asking for this for a while. When am I getting you this? It's not this graphics guy.
It's okay.
But he's finally moved
Man,
forward.
I'll knock it out. Don't worry. I'll squeeze you in.
But he's kind of caused me lose a little faith in humanity too. This one shots were just taking way too long, and if I didn't put half down on it, I would have just fired him. But other than that, hopefully next week when we talk, I'll be in a much better mood because I've already started planning the next podcast. I've been working with somebody that I worked for 6 years on a podcast to help me produce it. I've already started asking people to be on it and my contacts to be on it, and they've been really positive about it. Marc will talk in January when I start recording these things,
right?
And such. But it's an idea that I will hold off until next week to talk about.
Cool.
But it's something I'm really, really excited about. So let me get through these couple of days, and then next week you'll see a smile on my face.
Yay! 3 cheers.
Okay.
So Adam, is there?
What did David need me on for?
Yeah, well, you and David can coordinate.
You want me to put you guys in a breakout room, or
I don't know. I never heard of that.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's sort of.
I'll just text him.
Yeah, it's sort of like a cell in a Turkish prison. So okay, great. So Adam, go for it. Is there a Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Let's take a look while I do this. Let's just split my see if that works. It didn't work. Okay, anyway.
Yes.
Let's go to the question.
Sure.
It's from Willem Sowers.
Hi, Willem.
Who asks, do you think sci-fi has deteriorated over the past 20 years?
Yes. I was just talking to Elaine about that today. I mean, I really think it's interesting. My favorite period for science fiction literature is the 50s and 60s, because when I was a kid, I was reading used paperbacks that were, published in the 50s and 60s. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. But for me, the great era of science fiction film and television was sort of the 70s through the 90s, or you could even say the 60s through the 90s, because that would include Star Trek in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and but then you had such a really amazing run of terrific movies, particularly through starting with 1977 with Star Wars and going all the way through the 90s, and that included John Carpenter's The Thing and Alien and Aliens and on and on. I mean, Starship Troopers, so many wonderful films, and and so forth. And nowadays the reliance on CG, the fact that I was thinking about this. One problem with television series is that like, let's say for Star Trek, the original Star Trek, and even Star Trek: The Next Generation, you would have each hour, for various financial reasons, was a self-contained story, beginning, middle, and end, which means that some of the episodes would be really good and some of them would be less good. So you might get Spock's brain one week, but you'd get, City on the Edge of Forever another week, And so now, however, because a season of a show will tell one story, if that story sucks, or if it kind of veers left midway, or it ends badly, it wrecks the whole story. And at the end of watching the season, you go, Jesus, why did I waste my time with that? And so it changes the dynamics of a show very, very much. And I just think a lot of writers don't have much to say. When you look at that generation that was Rod Serling and Matheson and Beaumont and Harlan Ellison and all these people, they grew up in the Depression. Many of them fought in World War II. They really had been through something, and they had a lot to get off their chest, particularly someone like Rod Serling. And just the stuff being done now, most of those people who are on those shows haven't really done anything other than watch TV and watch movies. And so there's a quality of just imitating others that were better, And so I think that when you do encounter something that's of quality, it really stands out. And and even with something like Space Command, my whole goal is to tell a story that has some meaning, to create characters that you care about, and to work with actors who are incredibly talented. It's pretty straightforward. And but yes, I think other decades consistently were of a higher quality. That isn't to say that you don't get some things that are still terrific. I'm watching The Queen's Gambit now, which is a show on Netflix about chess. It's a drama based on a novel by Walter Tevis. Now, Walter Tevis wrote The Man Who Fell to Earth. He also wrote The Hustler. And, it's a very very good show. It's written and directed by Scott Frank, who did he wrote Minority Report, and is a talented guy. He used to go to my gym way back when, but I shared a mat with that guy. I did sit-ups next to that guy, but he's doing a really good job so far. Maybe the show will tank at the end, but I'm up to episode 6 now, and so far it's good. We'll see what happens. So that's the answer to that one. So I guess Bob Pincus, I guess you're next. There you go. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to stop in. It's been a while since
I've
been to one of these, and I'm working on my same stuff. One thing I've been looking into, which you might find interesting, is virtual production. Familiar with that?
Sure, yes.
It's totally interesting. I think it's the way forward.
Mm-hmm.
They use LED walls.
Yes.
And then Unreal Engine from game making, and a specialized camera. So then they put pre or post-production into pre-production.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
The Mandalorian is a perfect example of that. So anyone who wants,
only shows they're doing Mandalorian and God, I forgot the name of it. It's one other show.
Yeah, it's
Westworld.
Yeah, well, the challenge, of course, is that those screens are at this stage very, very expensive. The screens cost millions of dollars to make, and so that's the drawback right now. It's not ready for low budget production yet.
It's not. But I was thinking about it because my show starts with a courtroom scene, so I thought there's ways I could shoot that. I'd have to choreograph everything and then bring the people in different groups.
Mm-hmm.
You can't pack a courtroom, but I gave up on that just because of what William was saying, the cost of insurance and this whole COVID thing. That's why I think pretty soon, I think it's going to happen faster. They need a lot more sound stages, and the cost of LED walls should come down.
Yeah.
Dave, you ought to start learning Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
It's free. You can get it for free.
Wow. Cool. Yeah.
Anyway, so I've been, and I was going to those meetings, Stage 32. I was listening to them pitch,
and
they don't know what they're doing.
No, that's true of most people.
A lot, and it reminded me of all the classes I've taken in pitching, and so I worked out a pretty good pitch.
Yeah.
But it depends on who you're pitching to.
Yes. Now, one thing to mention, Bob, is that way back when, comic books and graphic novels were the great source material for TV shows and movies. Now, audio drama podcasts are the current thing. And so just to let you know, so you might think about doing an audio drama, because that would not be logistically nearly as difficult. And so you really might want to look at that. We recently recorded the Space Command prequel as an audio drama, just because I love audio drama. But
very interesting.
But I would recommend that, because you could do it for a fraction of the cost, and and particularly now with COVID and everything, you can do stuff with Zoom. Yeah, and so I would recommend that. I would suggest doing that. It'll only serve you.
And then just get it on a podcast.
Yes. Well, as someone was mentioning a few minutes ago, there's all these different platforms that you can put a podcast on, Apple and whatever the other ones are, Stitcher. And, so it's viable. It's definitely viable. And, and a lot of people are just stuck at home, and they want to do something interesting. So it's not that hard to pull it together.
You need some sound effects. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But you'll find that some of these audio podcasts have very, very few sound effects. It's very, very interesting. If you go on Audible, you could, like, Audible does audio drama, and they're very elaborate. They're very elaborate. But others do audio drama where there's almost no sound effects, and it's all done with the description and the actors and all of that, and it works perfectly fine. It works perfectly fine. So so I would recommend that.
I went on Audible, but I don't know. I listened to few pages put me to sleep. Basically.
Yeah, well, it's
depends what you're listening to, I guess.
It depends on what you're into and how it works. I listen to a lot of audiobooks just because I'm always, busy and on the road and so forth and working out, and I can listen to stuff.
Books?
I'll listen to any number of things. There's a great downloadable thing called Libby, Libby, and if you have a Los Angeles library card, you can download literally thousands and thousands of books and audiobooks and all sorts of stuff for free. It's terrific. And
they let you listen for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, as if you're taking out a book.
Yeah, a couple weeks. But the point is, I listen to histories. I listen to fiction, science fiction, classics, you name it. It's great. There's a really interesting thing I'm listening to now, among other things. I'm always listening to several books simultaneously. And Dracula, of course, is one of the great classics of horror fiction.
Yeah.
But apparently, when they published it in Iceland, Bram Stoker sent them a different draft of the novel that has a different plot. And no one recognized this until like 3 years ago, when someone went to the Icelandic version and started reading it and realized it was a completely different book. And so they've now translated it back into English, and it's amazing to see the differences. And it's still a really, really fun book, but it's very different. And
similar structure?
Yes. But for instance,
what do they call that again? A series of diaries?
It's epistolary. It's an epistolary novel. Yeah. And but it's just fascinating to see. It's called, I think it's called Powers of Darkness, something like that. If you look up Bram Stoker, you'll find it. But it's really interesting. But yes, so Audible is an arm of Amazon, and they have books on tape and all sorts of stuff. But Libby has most of that stuff, and that's for free. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, but you would say if I was going to try and post it, I wouldn't post it on Audible.
No, you do it as a podcast. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And again, the reason is because it just brings it alive. It makes it very different from just a script that's sitting there.
It's very easy to post as a podcast. There's several different Buzzsprout and I want to say
Stitcher,
companies that you can you can start posting things for free.
Yeah.
So it's easy to you just have to when you get it on Apple Podcasts and then all these other podcast streaming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is always, and I'm writing a book now called Greenlighting Yourself, and anything you do, you always have
supposed to get one of those, by the way.
Well, it's not out yet, so when it's out. Well, that's interesting. But the point being that with anything you do, you have to say, okay, how many people do I want to reach? What is the purpose of doing this? It's like many people, they're not reaching hardly anybody, and they're putting like an enormous amount of time and effort into it. Well, that's not a good idea. You want to have what you're doing be very, very clear. So for instance, like with Mr. Sci-Fi, I offer that content for free, but my little Mr. Sci-Fi commentaries, I just do very, very easily with my phone, and Dave might throw in a shot or two or whatever, stick a couple pieces together, if that. But my more elaborate things like Space Command, that's where I'm raising money and doing that on the grand scale. But again, I'm always cognizant of who I want to reach and how much work I want to put into it. And if it's free content, that's one thing. And if it's content that people have to pay for in one way or another, that's another. So
one thing is the name of my show would it attracts attention.
Yeah, but again, next Tuesday is going to determine a lot of things relating to how current the term fake news will be, because
it's not going to stop next Tuesday.
No, it's not. It's going to, and when we're all in adjoining cells at Guantanamo, depending on how the election goes, it's exactly. Yes, exactly. What was that?
Worse.
Was that a Biden-Harris sex toy, Dave, or what the hell was that thing? I
don't see how that's any of your business.
Exactly.
I mean, even if Biden is elected, there's going to be 40% who don't believe a word of anything.
Well,
they're tuned into a different reality.
Well, again, the table very deliberately is not political. Many of us have our own various beliefs, everyone is welcome to the table as long as it's in a spirit of compassion and mutual supportiveness. But I would urge you to do it as a radio play, absolutely, as an audible, as an audio
And
podcast.
I could get this almost the same people who did my table read.
It's very similar. You know, they're not that different. One could even take an audio track of a table read and just put in little interstitial stuff that explains what the fuck's going on, you know, because and then off you go. I mean, there's a lot of possibility, but I would definitely explore that. Yes. And so is there anything else you need?
No, that's it.
Okay, yay, 3 cheers. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, let's go to. Oh, that's right. Actually, there is a question.
Sure.
But I think I can answer that. It's from Wilhelm Saurers. He asks, "Is there an update on Diamond Dragons?" Because a few weeks ago, a friend of mine came on. Friend Matthew Corrado.
Sure.
Who is developing this movie called Diamond Dragons. Right now, he's been working on the novelization of it. And so I think he's in second draft mode, something like that. But that's where we're at so far. There's no, there hasn't been any like breakthroughs or anything yet on it.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's it for Mr. Sci-Fi questions for now.
Okay. Yay. So okay, so I guess Nick Repetto, and then we'll do Earl, I guess. So Nick, do you wanna take your turn? It's good to see you. Just unmute if you can. Can you unmute? Oh, it's not unmuting.
Thanks a lot, Mark. I gotta take off.
Oh, bye, Bob. So great. And so Nick, are you there or? Oh.
I think he hit the camera button.
You hit the camera button, but I'm not hearing you speak. So should we do Earl and then come back to you, Nick? Because we're not hearing you. So why don't we do you, Earl, and then we'll come back to Nick. Earl, are you there?
I think I did just what Nick did. On that little, next to the button where the 3 dots are is where you unmute.
Yeah, okay, go for it.
I wanted to ask you, Mark, from what you were saying earlier when they were asking about sci-fi getting worse.
Yes.
You were talking about the process. Could part of that also be that, in my opinion, and you tell me, you know, based on your side of things, is there less time for things to be creative? Maybe because of the digital world now?
No, I wouldn't say so. Because, you know, when you look at like Twilight Zone back in 1959, I mean, Rod was writing a new script each week. I mean, he'd lounge by his Olympic-sized swimming pool in the mornings, dictate it into a recorder, and have a secretary type it up. I mean, one week he'd be writing Walking Distance, the next week he'd be writing, you know, Eye of the Beholder or something. I mean, his output was astonishingly fast. And then he was also writing, movie scripts at the same time. I mean, it's just incredible. And so no, the speed of TV production has remained pretty much the same. In fact, in those years, you might have 39 episodes of a show in a year. Now you might have 7, you know, or whatever. So it's not the speed has picked up pace. It's that there's so much more content that it's just hard to, first of all, a lot of people are not being trained up well. But also there's just such an incredible amount of noise and static in terms of it just comes at you, all the content. And so how do you determine what's worth watching, you know? But I don't think it's no. The speed is very similar.
You really have to look at experience.
Yeah,
and that a lot of the people in those days, they came from rough neighborhoods. They didn't come out of college. They weren't white collar. They came from the army. They came from World War II.
It was just different.
It was a different attitude.
There were very different kinds of people.
They were different kinds of people, and they had a different attitude as to what you share on the screen. And that's why it's very good that now it's a revolution as to where writers are coming from.
Yes.
So it's people who actually have something to say rather than are simply reflecting back what they grew up watching as a child.
Right.
Then it was what they lived as a child.
It's really amazing because when you think of those guys who were writing TV in the 50s, they were inventing that medium. I mean, it was like they didn't have anything to look at. TV is really much more an evolution of radio drama and comedy than it is features. Because when it started, they were doing live broadcasts. And theater. Yes. And but it became very quickly its own medium, very different from cinema. And so anyway, I digress. So go ahead, Earl, please.
I'm just, I'm just reflecting on that, and then on from post, I know from my early days and to now, people want more complex stuff.
Yes.
Less money, not understanding the difference of real players and synth programming.
The technology has changed significantly. And I remember when I started as a TV writer, we wrote on IBM Selectrics, which was electric typewriter. Then everyone had to get computers, and you went from when I started, you were given a week to do a rewrite, and then you were given like a day to do a rewrite because it was on computer, and that just picked up the pace of everything hugely. So the technology puts changes on things. I mean, it's a very different technology now than it was when I started. But you just have to roll with it. I mean, there's always going to be some part of the process that's shitty and some part of the process that's great. And those things change as the technology changes. The fact that here we are, talking to each other on a computer screen. I mean, how science fiction is that? Thank God for this. Otherwise we'd be like some, prairie housewife in the 1800s. I mean, just going slowly crazy and reading the Bible over and over.
But that's where it's really important to research the market, because there'll be people who are really struggling to say something that matters to the viewers. And then there are people who are just there to make a buck. And the thing is that you don't want to spread your net too wide. You want to really focus in on people who seem to be struggling to communicate things of weight and matter, and aim your connection to those people.
Yes.
And not to the people who seem to be just turning out things that you just don't care about. I
mean, one always has to make a living, but then it's finding what really is creatively engaging, and Elaine and I are very lucky at this stage of our lives. I've always just done the work that interested me. I mean, even when I was a teenager, but now at this stage in our life, we're just able to do whatever the hell we want, which is great. And that allows us to do all these, TV shows, Space Command and all that stuff. I've turned down a lot more work than I've taken in my life, I'll tell you that. So, but okay, great. Here's dogs. God, how these dogs get in here? So anything else, Earl? Anything else you need?
Well, I was just, making that reference because I know before I got to study with Alf Klossman for a little while, and that was like the last show that used live orchestra.
Yes.
Now it's not even, the budgets aren't the same.
No.
The time isn't the same just to even get in to utilize a full orchestra, let alone do it. And not that it's different, but it just struck me is, the content is so much different, but also the supporting, without the music, where's the motion?
Yes.
Now when you're relying on synth stuff and a lot of the sci-fi, you listen to the music in the background, it's kind of all the same.
Yes.
And there's no sonic difference, emotion poured into the show. So, like when you watch Star Wars, you got real orchestra.
Yes.
Versus now, you're lucky if you get 5 players.
Well,
that you can try to sound like a real orchestra.
But then the trick is always to say, okay, how can I make this work for me? And I mean, and there's always the magic word. The magic word is no. And, so it's sort of like, okay, you don't have to jump through everybody's hoop. Obviously, you have to make a living. But I've found there was a great example was there's a guy named Ron Moore, and he was a showrunner, and he came off Star Trek: The Next Generation, and he was hired to showrun and write a series that would be an adaptation of The Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey. It was a very successful science fiction series of novels. And he wrote the draft of the pilot that was what he wanted. And then the network said, well, would you be willing to have another writer come in and do a polish? And he was sort of new in his career as a showrunner, so he said yes. And they started developing the script, and they got a draft, and they were about to pull the plug and shoot it. And he realized that he hated that script, and he really didn't want to do it. And he had to decide whether he was going to pull the plug on it and piss off everybody, okay, or make something that he knew would be a piece of shit. And he knew that if he pulled the plug, his career could be over, really could be over. And he pulled the plug because it wasn't of the quality he wanted to stand for. And that was a ballsy thing to do. Unfortunately, he had enough friends who were showrunners on other shows that they hired him, and they kept him going and re-legitimized him. And then he went on to be the showrunner on Battlestar Galactica and Outlander and so forth. So, but ultimately, it's up to all of us to decide what our bottom line is. And, and that's going to be different for each person. But at the end of the day, or at the end of your life, you want to look back at a body of work that you can feel proud of. And so however one does that, one has to find that room for one's own aesthetic and one's own self-worth.
Yeah, you see what compromises you can and can't make. I mean,
Yes.
That was the whole thing about Rod Serling.
Yes.
He wanted to speak to social issues, and he wasn't a science fiction writer, but the only way that he could is he pressed through and he put on that science fiction coat so he could say the things he wanted to say, which they flat out would not let him say and kept censoring out when he was doing straight drama.
Yeah.
So sometimes you say, well, what compromises? Part of the problem is that not in all venues, but in many venues, they do make a lot less money because it's spread so thin.
Yeah.
And so in some cases, them going cheaper on the music is stupidity, and sometimes it's budget. It's honestly budget.
But anyway, so is there anything else you need, Earl, at this stage?
One more question. And
Sure.
This is all up to add up to this.
Yes.
And this is from the process of thinking about Space Command and David Recklin raising so much money to get it moving forward.
Yes.
That I even think about the fact that is David Recklin a voice in Space Command? Him raising the money and also being a producer. And I'm thinking for myself, when I was in Sherman Oaks, a lot of projects I worked on for money, even though they weren't the greatest projects. I knew it was shitty. It was going to be shitty. It wasn't going anywhere, but I did it. To where now, since I have 40 students, since I have good income coming in, and I can now be more picky.
Right.
As a composer, taking on that producer role and say putting money into or hiring players so the music does have a voice to give projects I believe in a potential to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something crazy to think about as a composer?
No.
I mean, for you writers, directors, would you even want a composer? But I mean, at the same time, I see you have such great relationship with David Recklin.
Well, I mean, David was very instrumental in our first Kickstarter campaign. He's been much less so in the later ones. And he is a co-producer on the show as well as a composer. That's not the usual way things are done, but it was just the way things evolved in this case because he was very smart and he was really able to look over Kickstarter and see what worked and what didn't. And that helped us hugely in our initial campaign, which really got us going. One always has to be very careful about putting in one's own money because always assume when you put your own money into anything that you're going to lose all of it. Okay, right. Period. So never put more money in than you can stand to lose. I was talking to a gazillionaire today who's one of our investors on Space Command, and he was talking about other projects he's invested in, and some of them he knows that he's just investing in them because they're something he believes in, and he knows that he's not going to get, all the money's going to just, be blasted away. And I said, yeah, it's like a Viking funeral. You set the boat on fire and push it out into the sea. It's like, that's like what his investment is on certain things. Whereas other things he's invested in, like Hadestown, which was a big Broadway show, was a big hit, So, I mean, I'll invest some of my money, but never to a point where I can't make the bills. I'm very careful that way.
But we've invested a fair amount of our money has gone to production.
Yeah.
I mean, so we continue to lead a an economical life.
Yes.
Because we're putting the money into the dream.
Right. So, but we've made choices in terms of our lifestyle, so we could have creative freedom, and and that's worked out fine for us. So anything else, Earl?
No, that's great. I mean, that's big. I appreciate you.
Cool.
Guys.
Yay! 3 cheers. So Adam is
reminded me of the story of Monty Python. They were trying to raise the money for, I forget what, Holy Grail or Life of Brian. They couldn't do it, and they finally stumbled upon George Harrison,
Yes.
who put up the money. And they said, well, why did nobody wanted to put the money for this? Why did you put up the money for it? I wanted to see the movie.
Yes, which is a great reason. That's a great
afford it.
reason. Yes, and that's often why people invest in entertainment, because they actually want to see the thing that you're making. That's true of most of our investors on Space Command. So, Adam, do you have any more Mr. Sci-Fi?
Speaking of investors on Space Command.
Yay! Yes.
It's the exact reason why I invested in
Yes.
Space Command.
Yeah.
Because I want to see it, and it's a show that needs to be seen.
Yes, thank you, Adam. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
There is another question from Scott Baker, who asks, have you looked into producing in VR? It's still an untamed wilderness. It is the future. It's a huge challenge to create a 360
He froze up. Oh, there we go.
degree environment to
Yeah.
180 environments spliced.
Yeah. I have looked at VR and thought about it. The challenge always in VR is narrative, because you can, look this way or that way, and how do you direct the person's viewpoint to what you want them to be looking at any given moment? It's much more like an amusement park ride than your standard experience watching a screen, like a TV screen or a movie screen. That said, I feel certain that there are going to be people who really nail it down, because it's not insurmountable. It's just a challenge. Just like if you're writing a novel, it's a different medium than a movie or a TV show, etc. Every time you change medium, you change narrative bag of tricks. And so it's something that has interested me, but because I come out of traditional television, that's the medium I most enjoy working in, but I'm not averse to doing VR at some point. I just would have to make sure it was worth the time and effort, so that's sort of the answer to it. But there was a terrific attraction in England, outside London, that didn't stay open very long. It was this dinosaur experience that was you would ride in a van, and you go back in time and you ride in a van, and all the windows would be 3D screens looking out onto a dinosaur landscape, and then a brontosaurus would bump up against the truck, and your room would vibrate. It was just so cool. And then you'd get to this research station, and all the windows would all be 3D, and you'd be looking out and you'd be seeing these dinosaurs, and it was great. It was terrific. And then they led you into a room that had someone doing an autopsy on the dinosaur, and it was cool. I don't know why it didn't thrive, but I'm glad I got to see it. It was really great fun. So let's see. So Nick Repetto, yes, it's your turn. Go for it. Yay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry.
Cool.
Had the audio drop earlier. Hi, I'm Nick Repetto, composer, a member of the table now for I think 6 years.
Yay.
Love the table. It's been great. I actually just finished, delivered a score for a table member, Dave Rosenberg. His movie, The Reunion. It stars Austin Pendleton and Jim Norton, and it's going to be mixed next week.
Wow.
So,
Hey, wow.
speaking of budgets, we had a budget to hire an orchestra in Europe, Budapest, 25 piece, and I usually love to conduct here in town, but because of the pandemic, we had to do it remotely. It's still great though. It's like you're in the booth. Other than that, I have a short film and two features coming up now at the same time. It's going to be crazy. So it's been good. I'm not complaining. I'm very grateful to the universe. And I have one question though. I have a feature that I scored last year, and it's getting close to being released distribution wise, which is nice. And we're trying to promote it. Does anyone have access to KPCC on the frame for promotion purposes, or contacts there I can probably reach out to?
I listened to it, but I don't know anybody on it. But I would assume that if you just called KPCC, you could probably get to those guys. I mean, public radio is pretty accessible. Some people don't know, but for 3 years I was a commentator on Morning Edition back in the day. And the way I got that gig was I just decided I wanted to do it, and I contacted them and said, what do I need to submit? And they told me, and they bought it, and for 3 years I was, doing commentaries every month. So so it's I would just reach out. I mean,
I'll reach out then.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't a pandemic, I would suggest going to like a film festival or something and meeting that guy.
Right.
But now also most newspaper writers, which that guy is, at the bottom of their articles, it gives their contact info. It's like you can reach out to so and so at this address or this Twitter handle. So that's another way of doing it. But I would just call the station and say, hey, I want to submit something.
Yeah, because I think this film it was recognized in the New York Times, and it's doing well in the festivals, and obviously we're getting a good point of distribution, and I might have to, for the first time, get a publicist. Yay.
Cool, that's great.
Which is the next step. And then the next step would be, I don't know if anyone in the table is. I have to reach out to them, but maybe through the email. But I'm looking also now maybe into representation, which is
sure.
It's very tough for composers because it's my advice that another agent told me was like, don't bother calling us. We'll call you when we're ready. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But so I don't know if you guys agree or what do you suggest in terms of that?
I think that if I were you, I would do homework and look at composers who are at your level or just slightly above and see who reps them and reach out to those people.
Or if they are repped.
Yeah, because representation, if it's effective, is very, very useful because they have contacts, they have access. A lot can happen, but many agents and managers are a total waste of time, and they're not. I've
heard that too.
Yeah, so you just that, but that's why I say choose someone who's already effective, and you can contact their clients and say, hey, has this guy worked for you? People will frequently tell you if someone's been a good experience or a bad experience,
one composer was saying, just get to know the music supervisors. They're the ones who hire.
Yeah.
And they usually hire directly.
And, but again, it's like, there's a million ways to crack it. I mean, composers reaching out to showrunners is not a bad idea either. Because
I've done that too.
Exactly. And that can work very, very well.
Actually, the bulk of my work has been just by me pounding the pavement. And
yes, and that's
no managers involved.
Right, but again,
I guess to get to the next level, which is hard to access.
But just be dogged. Just the person who has to be the most invested and working the hardest is you. And you can build your team, but you have to be very, very, very driven. And it was very gratifying to me that recently I needed these financial figures because we're trying to raise $40 million for the Showrunners Network. And I reached out, to my network of people, and I was very gratified that they got back to me immediately. And that was like J.J. Abrams and Guillermo del Toro and, Damon Lindelof and all these guys who are like huge in the industry. And it's like, because I've built those relationships over decades, and I don't misuse those relationships, because when I reach out to them and say, I need, I have a question, and it's very straightforward, they may say yes or no, but they'll get back to me themselves. And that's very, very good. And, but again, I utilize my network of people in many, 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 many ways, pretty much, every day. And, and that's important. If you're working in isolation, particularly in terms of career decisions, you're making a big mistake. That's true of any of us. Guillermo del Toro's advisor is James Cameron. That's who advises him. J.J. Abrams' mentor is Steven Spielberg. Even at those levels, they have someone who's their go-to person to say, okay, I'm considering this. What would you advise? And that's worked very well for them, of course. Right. And, so there
I'll reach
you go.
Into my network then. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just curious, because the table has a lot to offer too. So I wanted to put it out there. I'll send an email, and then I'll make sure that it gets answered.
Terrific.
But other than that, it's been great. I'm if anyone needs music, I'm available. And for this film, actually, I scored a scene pro bono just to see if I was the right fit. So
That's
I'm
great.
willing to do that for table members if you guys need that.
Cool.
That option. And hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. And that's about it for me.
Yay! 3 cheers. So, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Oh.
Can I say something?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay. It was just a
Robert.
response to. Yeah, I came back because just yesterday I was listening to NPR.
Yes.
And there's this, and there was a story on it about how all the small news stations have gone out of business and small papers around the country.
Yes.
And one guy is snapping them all up, and he does total fake news, and it's unbelievable. It's called, excuse me, I just wanted to give you the name of it real quick. No, yeah, that's another. This is Franklin Archer.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an article by Davy Alba, a young woman at the New York Times. Anyway, it's just it's unbelievable.
Well,
that one person could take over all these little small town papers, and then the reporters are in a whole different part of the country. He tells them what to write.
Yeah.
And it's total fiction.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's really interesting because there was a very, very concerted effort to allow journalism to lie. And because way back when, during the Reagan administration, they shot down the fairness doctrine, which was mainly in broadcasting, but it was very important, which was that if you presented a certain viewpoint, you had to have a counterpoint, viewpoint that could air, and that gave you a balance. But then when Roger Ailes wanted to do Fox News, they struck down the fairness doctrine specifically so they could create Fox News, so it wouldn't have to have any accountability for what it was broadcasting. And it's then escalated now to exactly what you're saying. And also Rupert Murdoch was a huge exponent of that. Now the fascinating thing is that in the 19th and early 20th century, yellow journalism, the Hearst Syndicate and all those guys, it was common for them to lie and make stuff up. And of course, the Gulf of Tonkin didn't happen, and that was the incident that got the Vietnam War going. So again, there's a long history of a lot of chicanery when it comes to reporting. And, but that's a bigger subject.
It's kind of universal, but it's great fodder for storytelling.
It's not universal to the degree that you can find, Elaine and I, of course, are on the left, so we'll listen to Amy Goodman on KPFK or Tom Hartman, or Elaine gets the lowdown, which is by some guy, Jim Hightower out of Texas. And, there are voices of real journalists, and there's the Nation magazine. I mean, you can find, and the Atlantic, of course, and the New York Times is doing some very good work. So you can, if you
the whole thing going on with the big tech companies. Mark Zuckerberg saying, I don't want to be the arbiter of truth.
Yes, well, there you go.
The arbiter of mistruth.
Yes.
Anyway,
that's
fascinating what's going on.
It's a big subject.
I just wanted to bring it up.
Well, absolutely. So Adam, you were saying there was a Mr. Sci-Fi question?
All right, thank you.
Remember, Robert, it's just a country, there'll be others.
Yes. Okay, great. Yeah. I hear Switzerland is nice. Go ahead.
So we have a question from Manumus11. I hope I said that right. Who asks, do you think that there will be more sci-fi outer space movies because of the fact that we are commercializing space with SpaceX and other companies?
Yes, I do. And I think that, some of them will be good, some of them will be bad. But, the cool part is there have been space-going movies, for the last, 60 years. There's always, every decade has a good one, and often more. And of course, Star Trek, the original shows and Next Gen and so forth. So yeah, I think the cool part is that a lot of the technology, if you do a story set on Earth, a lot of the technology has been superseded. Like if someone's on a remote phone that's this big in a science fiction movie back a few decades ago, it's like, oh, that's laughable. Whereas because we haven't been to other solar systems, we haven't encountered intelligent alien life yet, that's still speculative. And those kind of stories hold up. They really do work still. And so so I think it's a genre that's going to continue, and thank God, so let's see if we covered, Vince, I don't know if Vince wants to take a turn. Vince, if you do, just, unmute, but yeah, there you go. Hi, Vince.
Hi, my name's Vince. I'm a visual effects compositor. Most of my work has been helping my friends with indie films, And I've also done some assistant editing work for Lego Ninjago related projects. Right now, I've done I'm helping with Space Command.
Yay!
And kicking butt.
Yes, yes,
thank
you're doing a great job. So thanks so much for that.
That's all I got right now.
Okay, great. Well, it's great to hear from you, Vince. Yay, Vincent Glazer, ladies and gentlemen. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Well, we had a question earlier, but it's for David. But you might know this,
sure,
because Bartlett is has gone home.
Yeah. Is it should you kiss on the first date? No, go ahead, please.
But the question is, who owns Roger Corman's lumberyard turned studio where they shot Galaxy of Terror? Is it available to store your used set pieces by any chance?
I don't think so. I don't really know who owns it now. And Roger Corman is such a mixed bag. I mean, so many of his movies are total crap. You know, he tried one quality production with a movie called The Intruder that was about a racist rabble rouser, and William Shatner starred in it. And it was written by Charles Beaumont, who was one of the great writers of The Twilight Zone. It was based on Beaumont's novel. And interestingly enough, William Nolan and George Clayton Johnson, who George was a writer on Twilight Zone, and the two of them co-wrote Logan's Run. They played two white trash guys who firebomb a church, and so that was, you know, so for any fans of the Twilight Zone, it's worth it just to see, you know, Charles Beaumont and Bill Nolan and George Clayton Johnson in a movie. Beaumont played a school principal in that film. But that was and Roger Corman directed and produced it, but it didn't make money. It's one of the few films he lost money on, and so he decided to not do that again. But I'm not a big fan of Corman's work. He started a lot of people's careers, but I would never of an evening sit and watch a Roger Corman film for entertainment. You know, I think they're just below the level of entertainment, quite frankly. And I think the one.
But I got a soft spot for the films with Vinny and Peter Lorre and.
You mean the Poe ones, the Edgar Allan Poe ones? Yeah, and I don't really think of those as Corman films, because Matheson and Beaumont were writing them. And yeah, but you're right, Dave. You're right. Absolutely. So so great. So now I think it's Elaine's turn. Yay,
oh my
Elaine.
Gosh,
It's your turn, Elaine. Go for it, Elaine.
Yeah, well, just keeping busy. Unfortunately, split between a lot of different things. But right now I'm just prepping some an edit to pass on to poor Dave with my my paper edit on a small scene from Space Command, or a little series of scenes of two people on the ship. And it was great because these actors never had heretofore have only had like very small bits and pieces. And so all those bits and pieces, we have a chance to really work with them, and they're very, very talented. Yeah. So that's been fun. And working on Space Command and doing all of the technical, yucky corporate stuff but you know,
it's great fun.
It's great fun. Well, he's unstoppable, which is amazing.
Yes.
And just plugging along. So nothing breaking out or new right now, but just keeping extraordinarily busy.
Cool.
So we're both a little bit fried today.
Yeah. Yay. So I see that there's another Mr. Sci-Fi question from Hawkins. Adam, if you want to read that one.
Yeah, we can go to that.
Yeah, I like that question.
Yes. So Hawkins asks, since it's close to Halloween, which is this Saturday, do you have any tips on writing horror?
Yes.
And is there a difference between suspense and horror?
Absolutely, yes. And most people don't know that I story edited Friday the 13th, the series. So I actually have written horror. The thing about horror is you have to find something that's fresh. You know, if you're just doing a standard vampire story or a standard zombie story or whatever, you know, it's just going to sit there and not do anything really. You have to find what makes it exciting and thrilling and fresh and surprising. You know, and a good part of that is starting with what actually scares you. You know, I mean, not like movie stuff that scares you, but real life stuff that scares you, and build from that. You know, and there are two different philosophies in horror movies. One in which no one has a chance and only evil wins, and I tend not to like those films. And the other where people who are strong and kind and compassionate and tough succeed. People come together and succeed and defeat the horror. But suspense is very different. Suspense is like a Hitchcock film, and very few people realize that Hitchcock actually did a horror movie. Well, one could say Psycho is a horror movie, but The Birds is one of my favorite movies, and that's definitely a horror movie, but a very Hitchcockian one that's unique to him. But if you haven't seen The Birds, I highly recommend it. But suspense is something like North by Northwest or something. It's like, will the guy survive? Will the bad guys get him? It's more like a thriller. Horror is that sort of things that go bump in the night. It's like that fear we all have walking alone at night, going into a dark room, the fear of death, and horror has changed significantly over the last 100, 200 years, because back around, the earlier parts of the 20th century and earlier, the experience of death was much more familiar to everyone. I mean, in the 19th century, almost every family had at least one child who died, if not more. And life expectancy, if people lived beyond their 30s, they were doing great. So, and when people died, they would have them in the living room for a viewing. And often often people would die at home, not in the hospital, and the family would basically bathe the body and prepare it for viewing, and so that experience with death. So when you look at Edgar Allan Poe, for instance, or Lovecraft, they're coming from an experience that's much more directly personally related to dying bodies and putrefaction and all of those. Whereas for most of us, unless you've been in a war or worked in a hospital or driving an ambulance, your experience of death is going to be much more, what we've seen in TV and movies. So the trick is always to find stuff that's going to shock the audience. And when I talked about Alien earlier, the way I saw Alien, the way Elaine and I saw Alien, was before it ever came out, before anyone had heard of it, it was previewed at the World Science Fiction Convention in this gigantic theater. And no one knew what it was going to be. And when that chest burster broke out of John Hurt's chest, the audience just screamed and jumped a foot, including Harlan Ellison, who was sitting in front of me, who was a pretty tough cookie. And it was just shocking. And I had that same experience when I saw Night of the Living Dead, because it was a movie where it's like, what are the rules here? We don't, and Alien and Night of the Living Dead shared that. It's like, we don't know what the rules are here, but it didn't defy dramatic storytelling. It just was like a new thing. And terrific stuff. So that's some of it. You still have to tell a story, a beginning, middle, and end. It still has to have characters you care about, ideally. The best horror films do. Psycho is a brilliant film, but there've been a lot of lesser films with psychotic people, but that one is the story. And it's based on a real murderer named Ed Gein, who Robert Bloch wrote the novel Psycho and patterned it after Ed Gein's crimes. And interestingly enough, Psycho is based on Ed Gein's murders, and so is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So two very famous franchises were based on the same real serial killer. So interesting stuff. So that's a long-winded answer to that question.
Can I mention a low-budget horror film that's kind of unique?
Of course.
A buddy back east had an idea, and incredibly low budget, but slapped it together, and it's on. And I've only seen about 30 minutes of it, but it's creative. It's on, I think, on Amazon Prime, and it's got the great title, Baby Frankenstein.
That's great. Well, when I was a kid here in LA, they had a kids show called Shrimpenstein, and that had like a ventriloquist dummy of a kid, Frankenstein. It was pretty fun. So now it's me, wonderful me, and Dog and Elaine. So a lot is happening. Space Command, we are getting toward the finish of the second hour in post. We have virtually all of the VFX shots assigned to a number of VFX artists here and in Chile and in Germany. and we are cooking along, and it's very, very exciting to see it coming together. We started shooting the 4th hour, which is the 2nd hour of the second 2-hour story, and Elaine's editing that footage that was shot with Ryan Husk and Dallas Malloy at our Space Command studios with full.
Well, paper editing. If you want me to hand you the keyboard.
Yeah. And well, we should really get that uplink going, Dave. We really should. And but meantime, we're in post on Space Command. We're also in prep on Space Command and active production too. And at the same time, we're very, very busy at work on the Showrunners Network, which is us creating 6 series with 6 major showrunners, and that includes Sweet Haven, which is with Rockney O'Bannon, and it stars Gates McFadden and Robert Picardo and Mira Furlan and Barbara Bain and Michael Harney. And we're reaching out to Eva Marie Saint and George Takei, and we're going to have a table read of that on November 10th, a Zoom table read, and then we're going to do whatever tweaks to the script, and we'll record a second table read, and that we'll put out to the public to help us raise money to shoot that pilot. And then we're also doing Fugitive Space with Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby. They created and run The Expanse and wrote Children of Men and Iron Man. I'm in talks to do Rod Serling's After Twilight, and I'm in talks with the Serling family on that one. Magic Time, based on our trilogy of best-selling novels, is on the slate, and so is Harbor, which is a pilot by Elaine that's very much in the Field of Dreams kind of style. And my friend David Simpkins, who created Briscoe County and Mercy Point and Vengeance Unlimited, and he was also an executive producer on Charmed and Angel and Roswell and bunches of other shows, Grimm. He's reading it now to see if he'll come aboard as the showrunner of note on that one. So, and we're working to raise $40 million. So we're talking to venture capitalists and on and on and on. Yeah. So we are, getting the figures we need to make our case, and hopefully they'll write us a check for 36 to 40 million bucks, and then we will, get Dave his bicycle built for 2 or whatever he wants. And, so, but that's where everything stands. And I'm writing the Greenlighting Yourself book, which will come out from Silman James as soon as I finish it. I'm about a third of the way through on it. And, what else? I'm sure I'm forgetting stuff, but that's plenty for now. It's great to be doing all of this. It's definitely living the dream, and no complaints. It's you can do all this stuff too if you read Greenlighting Yourself. So that's about it for now. I'm redecorating
and if you vote.
Yes, vote on Tuesday.
Vote on Tuesday. If you haven't voted already.
Here's a word to the wise. Because they've screwed up the postal service deliberately, you cannot mail your ballot now. It will not be counted. So either go to the polling place in person and vote there, or bring it in person to the polling place, or drop it in an official polling ballot box, not the fake ones that they've set up at various places that are not real. It has to be a legitimate one, but really, really endeavor to vote.
Give it to Devin Nunes.
Yes. Say that again. Give it to Devin Nunes. No, and again, not speaking from the right or from the left. I love this country. I love democracy. I love the fact that in a balanced political world, people on the right and people on the left both get some of what they want, but not all of what they want. And any time it goes to one side or the other, where there's no winning for the other side, that's a problem, and that's not democratic. And so I strongly believe in the vote. I strongly believe in representative government. And I think that we all should have a voice. And if we don't, it's a dictatorship. So whether you're on the right or on the left, voting is very important, and having your voice heard is very important. So a word to the wise. And then finally, I'm redecorating our place. I'm putting up different photos, including, here is a photo of Elaine at 10 maybe, rowing a boat. So there's Elaine rowing a boat. And that's going to go up on our wall. So it's pretty. She was a cutie pie with big blue eyes, and really fun stuff. Really fun stuff.
And does she still do the rowing?
Not as much. No.
At the
gym, but that's about it.
It was a big surprise to me how hard
rowing
was to pull a boat.
Yes. Though we did row a canoe at Disneyland some years ago, which was
but that
great
was the
fun.
help of like 20 other
That's
people.
with 20 other people, an Indian canoe. So great. Well, that's it for this time. Enjoy Halloween, everyone, as best you can. We're going to be watching The Birds on Halloween night and
eating pumpkin pie.
And so thanks for everything. Thanks for all the good work, guys. It's great to see everyone, and we'll be here next time. And thanks again, and have a safe and good week. Okay, bye, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Take
care. Bye, guys. Bye, Mr. Sci-Fi fans. Okay, good. Whew.